By the time Shane returned to the camp at the base of the mountain, the surrounding woods had settled into a quiet hush. Only a single figure remained by the bonfire, her armor glinting faintly in the firelight. "Vivian, you're back," she said gently, standing as soon as she saw him. Shane blinked, a little surprised. "You waited for me this whole time?" Vivian smiled, brushing ash from her gauntlet. "I'm on first watch tonight. Lumuya and Marika have already turned in, and TL is patrolling the perimeter, just in case any demons have wandered down from the mountain." "I see." Shane stepped closer, guilt flickering in his eyes. "Still thanks." Vivian's gaze lingered on him, eyes filled with concern. "Are you all right?" "Of course." Shane replied quickly, almost too quickly. Her expression softened in relief. "Then it looks like you found your answer." Shane scratched his head awkwardly. "Found my answer?" It almost sounded like he'd been deeply troubled. "I mean, I was surprised, sure," he admitted, "but it wasn't anything I couldn't process. It was the truth." Just as Lisha had suspected, Shane wasn't shaken by the revelation that the Demon King had already been defeated. His agreement to join the mission had always been transactional. Nian had given him a second chance at life, and in return, he'd promised to help defeat the Demon King. That was the deal. If someone else had taken care of the job, then so be it. No point in brooding. The real issue now was his identity. The hero. Once that truth came to light, the ripples would inevitably spread through the world. Influence, politics, power shifts, and whatever secrets lay behind the current situation, Shane had no doubt they would eventually drag him in. But that didn't worry him either. After all, I've seen this kind of story unfold 100 times before, in books, games, anime. He'd already decided what to do. Only one path lay ahead. "I just need to get stronger," he murmured aloud. Vivian tilted her head. Shane looked up and smiled. "No matter what conspiracy is waiting out there, if I'm strong enough, I'll deal with it." He meant every word. Strength would be his compass. "And so, I'm going to work hard. Really hard." Vivian blinked, then smiled softly. "I'm glad to hear that." Her expression, gentle and encouraging, gave Shane a subtle sense of reassurance. "The first step is becoming an official adventurer," Shane reminded himself. With that title, he'd gain access to information, resources, and connections. The guild existed all across the world. It was the perfect foundation for gathering intel and getting stronger. For Shane, there were two main paths to strength: leveling up and acquiring new skills. Leveling up wasn't ideal. With the Holy Sword and multiple EXP-enhancing abilities, defeating enemies too easily wouldn't yield much benefit. He needed a more efficient method. Skills. By traveling, taking on quests, and interacting with various people, Shane could gain and master multiple skills. And with his unique skill, Heaven's Grace, he could raise them faster than anyone. It was far more efficient than wandering alone through monster-filled forests like some brooding protagonist from a light novel. Those loner power-up arcs are cool on paper, Shane thought. But let's be honest. Locking yourself away in the wilderness is a great way to lose all social skills. Besides, he'd already tried it, 10 days in a monster forest, and it was enough to drive him stir-crazy. "I'm definitely becoming an adventurer," he declared. Vivian chuckled at the fire in his voice. "That's the spirit. If I run into trouble, I'll ask for your help," Shane said honestly. "Anytime," Vivian replied, reaching out and giving his shoulder a light pat. "That's what I'm here for." Shane nodded with gratitude. He truly meant it. There was so much he didn't understand about this world, and Vivian's knowledge was a priceless resource. A rustle in the trees signaled someone's return. A small silhouette appeared from the darkness. "TL," Vivian greeted warmly. The petite warrior nodded in response, her eyes flicking briefly toward Shane. Then, without a word, she turned and disappeared into one of the tents. Shane blinked. Was it just his imagination? Or had TL given him a strange look? "Probably just me," he muttered to himself. He sat down beside Vivian, taking a turn at the watch. The two spoke quietly for a while, with Shane asking more about the world, the guild, and how adventurers operated. Eventually, Lumuya and Marika emerged to relieve them, and Shane reluctantly stood to return to his tent. There were 3 tents in total. Vivian and TL shared one. Lou Muya and Marika shared another. Shane's tent sat a modest distance away, just far enough to make it clear it had been placed with intentional caution. He sighed as he stepped inside. Kind of lonely, he mumbled. Still, as he settled into his sleeping bag, he felt a quiet determination burning in his chest. No matter how strange this world was, he was going to carve out a place in it. The next morning, at dawn, as the faint light of the sun crept across the horizon, the bonfire at the base camp of the Mangar Mountain Range was already extinguished. Still deep in sleep, Shane didn't stir, until Vivian unceremoniously entered his tent and yanked him out. Time to move. This is the window between the nocturnal demons returning to their dens and the diurnal ones waking. It's the safest time to enter the mountain. With that concise explanation, Vivian assembled the group. The other girls, TL, Lumia, and Marika, seemed perfectly alert, as if early wake-ups were second nature. Their sharp eyes and ready posture gave no trace of drowsiness. Only Shane stumbled along groggily, yawning so widely it looked like his jaw might unhinge. In contrast to the group of energetic young adventurers, he resembled a bleary-eyed traveler who'd wandered into the wrong genre. Vivian frowned slightly, arms crossed. "You look like a mess. Go wash your face before you fall over." With a sheepish grin, Shane trudged over to rinse off. "I thought I was getting used to early mornings in this world," he muttered to himself, splashing cold water on his face, "but I guess I've still got a long way to go." Being an adventurer wasn't easy. Night shifts, dangerous missions, early starts, and a constant threat of demon attacks, all while running on little sleep. Shane wasn't just feeling tired. He was feeling humbled. Do these girls not care about getting their beauty sleep? He mumbled, blinking away sleep as the cold water finally snapped him awake. Once he returned, freshly washed and marginally more alive, Vivian was already laying out the mission briefing. "Gather around." She unfurled a detailed map from her satchel and spread it across a flat stone. It was a map of the Mangar Mountain Range, complete with hand-drawn paths, water sources, and several symbols marked across the terrain. Red times S, pool-like icons, and various other glyphs gave it the look of a well-worn tactical reference. "We've already dealt with the blood-sucking vines," Vivian began. "Now, our remaining objectives are twofold. Collect spring water from a medium-grade magic power source, and obtain fire lizard hides." Everyone listened intently. There are 17 known magic sources in the range. 1 large, 3 medium, and 13 small. We're ignoring the small ones. They're unstable and not what the client requested. With that, Vivian picked up a feather quill and struck out 13 pool symbols with red X's. Shane watched closely, now realizing those pools symbolized magic power sources. "We'll also skip the large one," Vivian added. "Sure, the water there would please our client, and the pay bump would be nice, but that site is rumored to be home to a level 80 demon." She crossed out the gold-colored symbol and another one nearby. "Too dangerous to approach." That leaves 2 viable medium-grade sources. One's close. The other is in the opposite direction. We're heading to the nearby one. With swift, confident strokes, Vivian traced a route from their current position to the remaining pool symbol. "If all goes well," she explained, "we'll reach the spring just as the diurnal demons start to stir. We collect the water first, then remain nearby. Once a fire lizard pack appears, we engage and collect hides. Simple and clean." She glanced around. "Questions?" TL, Lu Muya, and Marika remained silent. "But I've got one." Shane raised his hand, completely serious. "What exactly is a magic power source?" The silence was immediate. Lu Muya and Marika nearly tripped over themselves. Even a usually stoic TL stiffened. Vivian blinked at Shane for a long moment before sighing. "You really lack the basics, don't you?" Vivian didn't look irritated, though, just sympathetically exhausted. Shane scratched his cheek, trying not to look like a clueless tourist in another world. "Let's start from the top, then," Vivian said gently. "Magic power exists in all living things. From the moment life is born, it possesses life force, and from that, magic power can be generated. Even commoners have a tiny trace of it, though it's usually not strong enough to use magic or skills. Shane nodded slowly, processing. The world itself, the land, the air, even the flow of nature, is rich with magic power. And sometimes, that power gathers in one place, condenses, and becomes visible. That's a magic power source. She pointed at the pool symbol still visible on the map. Those sources are like natural reservoirs of mana, and spring water drawn from them is highly potent. It can be used for rituals, potions, enchantments, and healing. That's why it's so valuable. Her explanation was clear and easy to follow. Shane now understood, mostly, but one thing still bugged him. If magic power comes from life force, and people constantly consume magic power to use spells and skills, wouldn't that eventually drain their life? He blinked at Vivian, genuinely curious. Vivian blinked right back, then smiled, amused. That's actually a good question, she admitted. But no, not quite. While magic is derived from life force, the body naturally regenerates it. Just like stamina or strength, it's a resource that recovers over time, especially with rest, meditation, or potions. Unless someone pushes themselves past their limit or has a cursed skill, they won't die just from using magic. I see. Don't worry, she added with a wink. You'd have to be pretty reckless to burn through enough magic to kill yourself. Shane let out a relieved sigh. Good. That would have been a rough mechanic. Marika and Lu Muya exchanged glances, whispering under their breath. TL just looked off into the trees, unreadable as ever. All right, Vivian said, clapping her hands. Now that everyone's clear, let's move. With the group aligned and the mission plan in place, they packed up camp and began their ascent into the Mangar mountain range, toward their next challenge. Unbeknownst to them, something was already watching, and this time, it wouldn't be a simple lizard.
Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
In his previous life, Shane often read about various settings related to life force, which made him quite concerned about the nature of this power, especially since its mechanism could be used to convert into magic power, leading Shane to constantly wonder if those mages who recklessly squandered magic power would one day suddenly drop dead from exhausting their life force. However, in any storyline, people seem to use this power as a matter of course and eventually came out unscathed, leaving Shane puzzled. These plot holes were eventually dismissed as just novel stuff, taking it seriously as a loss, so they were no longer pursued. Now, Shane felt that since he had encountered this issue in reality, he must find an answer. Otherwise, his obsessive-compulsive tendencies would drive him to madness. Naturally, Vivian couldn't possibly know about Shane's mental activities. So, in response to Shane's question, Vivian answered with a smile. I think you don't need to worry too much about this matter, Vivian said, because life force is the power that any life form uses to sustain its survival, just as flowers, grass, and trees need to absorb nutrients and water to grow. Perhaps without it, no life form can survive, yet it will still be consumed. Hearing this, Shane somewhat understood. Simply put, life force is like nutrition. It's needed to support life activities. Without it, there will be malnutrition and even death, although it can be replenished, right? Many people understood life force as something akin to an individual's lifespan, believing that consuming it would shorten their lifespan or something akin to that. But in reality, life force was merely the energy needed for life activities. Life forms certainly couldn't survive without it, but consuming it wouldn't cause instant death, just like how a person needs to eat to replenish the nutrients and energy their body requires. Life force could also be restored through rest, sleep, and eating. Meanwhile, it inherently needed to be consumed to sustain life activities, not something that couldn't afford to be lost. Of course, if life force was completely lost, life activities couldn't be carried out, ultimately leading to death. However, under normal circumstances, this was similar to being hungry. A moment of hunger wouldn't lead to death, but if hunger persisted, death would occur. So, life force shouldn't be lacking for too long. If it's not replenished and completely drained, the game is over. As for magic power, although it was converted from life force, and the human body originally needed to consume life force to maintain life activities, just gaining an extra function to convert into magic power means it's one among many life activities. As long as daily rest, sleep, and eating are well maintained, and as long as life signs remain normal and life force adequately replenished, it wouldn't run out. However, magical power and life force have a direct conversion relationship, and their connection is stronger than ordinary life activities. If magical energy runs out, it similarly affects the body, causing fatigue and lethargy, or even might result in fainting if severe. Vivian added these explanations. Thanks to this, when a person's magical powers experience an anomaly, it often directly reflects physically, so it should be appropriately monitored. Vivian's words reminded Shane of one of his skills, undying. This skill could forcibly sustain Shane's vital signs by consuming magic power, potentially the best evidence of the direct relation between magic power and life force. The world, like the human body, consumes life force to sustain various natural activities, but life force is naturally replenished as long as there's no issue with the world itself. Vivian pointed at the pool icon on the map and spoke to Shane. And these magic sources, similar to how our life force converts into magic power, are the world's life force converted into magic power. If a large amount of this magic power gathers in one place over a long period, it will become substantial in the form of springs or even solidify into magic crystals or various magical minerals and metals. Due to this, the spring water in the magic sources could be used for various purposes, just like magic crystals, whether in creating magic potions, magic tools, or magic weapons. Obviously, the larger the magic source, the higher the concentration of magical power contained in its spring water. Some magic sources' spring waters could directly substitute for the effects of magic crystals, thus making it an extremely precious resource. The problem is, not only do we humans want it, but demons also crave it, Vivian said seriously. Since demons can gain power by directly absorbing magic power, these magic sources attract them immensely. As such, various demons naturally gathered around the magic sources, with greater numbers inhabiting larger sources, making them an arduous threat. Moreover, the magic power in the magic sources might even influence and interfere with the surrounding environment, giving birth to some special demons. The previous golem was born in this manner, Vivian laughed and said. It probably had been targeted by other demons because of its low level, driven away from the magic source, and resorted to attacking people by the roadside, absorbing minerals to strengthen itself. But then it encountered you, unlucky chap. What could Shane say to that? He could only laugh. But thanks to Vivian's thoughtful explanation, Shane finally understood why she formulated such a strategy. Since demons will be attracted to the magic source, we simply need to lie in wait nearby. Sooner or later, our target will appear, right? Not just that. If things went as planned and demons fought amongst themselves for control of the source, Shane and others could remain ambushed on the sidelines, waiting for the right moment to benefit. They could then directly strip the skin of the fire lizard slain by demons to complete their task. The fire lizard is a level 30 to level 40 social demon. According to the scale of this magic source, it should attract a group of fire lizards. Vivian summed up in a single sentence, telling Shane that this was precisely her idea. To this, Shane also had just one comment. You are truly cunning. This statement left Vivian, TL, Lu Muya, and Marika in shock. Shortly after, Shane shifted his tone, adding another sentence. But I like it. After saying this, Shane gave Vivian a thumbs up. This made Vivian, who had come to realize his point, roll her eyes involuntarily. Even TL and Marika seemed unsure of how to react, while only Lu Muya maintained her usual expression. Well, let's set off then. Vivian put away the map. Everyone packed their luggage, tethered the carriage in the adjacent forest, and entered the Mangar mountain range. Not long after, the day fully broke. The sunlight poured down from the sky, illuminating the land and making the vegetation in the Mangar mountain range look like it was draped in a layer of golden silk, appearing extraordinarily beautiful. However, amidst this beautiful nature, there undoubtedly lay quite a bit of danger. Demons active during the day began to stir at this time, causing savage roars to echo through the corners of the mountains. Nevertheless, Vivian's team reached their destination smoothly and without any risks. "All right, we've arrived." Vivian, who was walking at the front, stopped and informed her companions behind her. This allowed everyone to relax their tense nerves a bit, each letting out a sigh of relief. "Finally, we're here." Marika spoke with a bitter face, panting with exhaustion. "Are you okay, Marika?" Lu Muya supported Marika, her face full of concern. "You should work on your physical fitness too, Marika." TL stood behind the two girls, seeming like their rear guard, speaking calmly. "But I'm a mage." Marika immediately puffed up her cheeks. Since they needed to arrive at their destination before the demons became active, Vivian's team embarked on a rather strenuous forced march. In such circumstances, it's understandable that Marika, unlike the others, was soon panting heavily, almost unable to move. According to the information Vivian had previously shared, this elf girl was purely a mage. When leveling up, her magic power improved the most, but her physical abilities seemed to be no different from that of an average girl. Given that, expecting this delicate elf beauty to travel quickly through the mountains was naturally quite difficult for her. If Lu Muya hadn't supported and even carried Marika for a while, the team likely wouldn't have arrived at their destination on time. But people really can be surprising. Shane, at the back of the team, cast his gaze on Lu Muya, who was supporting Marika with a worried expression. Despite her seemingly delicate demeanor, she not only managed to keep up with everyone, but also did so while carrying someone without breaking a sweat. Such an outcome with Vivian and TL didn't surprise Shane at all. After all, these two clearly had high levels and weren't mages like Marika. They always gave Shane the impression of strong women, so such outcomes were only natural. But Lu Muya's performance was entirely different from those two. Since yesterday, she'd seemed like a shy and delicate pendant, either clinging to TL or Marika, looking as if she was one step away from having "I'm weak, please don't bully me" written on her face. The unexpected outcome left Shane feeling he'd misjudged her. Of course, Marika's performance also surprised Shane a bit. Isn't there any magic that can enhance physical abilities? Shane gave it a shot by asking this question. Though he asked, Shane didn't really expect a response from Marika. He just wanted Vivian to explain, who made it so that everyone else in the team, besides Vivian, was wary of him. Unexpectedly, the surprising thing happened. Body enhancement falls under support magic. I haven't learned the magic support skill, so I can't use it. Marika continued, puffing. I'm proficient in Flame Series and Ice Series magic, so I only train in the Magic Fire and Magic OI skills. I haven't studied support magic. With that statement, the surroundings fell silent. Shane was stunned, his face full of surprise. Vivian, TL, and Lu Muya were also taken aback, looking at Marika in amazement. Marika then realized her previous attitude, her puffed cheeks beginning to show slight panic. And know that Marika looked helpless and began to stutter in her speech. Seeing this, Shane scratched his face and, with an awkward rather than polite smile, said, "Thank you for your explanation." Shane provided Marika a way to step down. "Why, you're welcome." Marika's pretty face started to turn red. The originally quiet atmosphere suddenly became a bit subtle. It wasn't until a moment later that Vivian broke this subtle atmosphere. "Let's gather the spring water first," Vivian said, looking at Marika with a slight smile. "Marika, can I count on you?" "Oh, okay." Marika immediately ran forward as if relieved. Wait. "Marika, be careful of demons." Lu Muya hurried after her. "Really?" TL mumbled something under her breath and then followed them, seemingly wanting to guard Lu Muya and Marika. Shane and Vivian were the only ones left on the scene. "So how was it?" Vivian teased. "Is Marika cute?" "Cute. Shane immediately gave Vivian a sideways glance. It's just a single sentence. What's being cute got to do with it? Shane nearly blurted out a curse, destroying his honest image. Isn't that nice? Vivian didn't mind Shane's sudden change of wording and spoke to herself. At least now you know they aren't as wary of you as you thought. Maybe that's true, Shane muttered. But that's just Marika, right? There were still TL and Lumuya, with one being cold and reticent and the other shy and timid, showing no signs of interacting with Shane, right? Is that so? Vivian said meaningfully. Perhaps someone has already let down their guard against you, and you just don't know it? Leaving those words, Vivian tossed them at Shane before walking toward her comrades. Someone else? Shane was left bewildered. Is this really the case? How come I didn't know? I haven't done anything special, right? Could it be some cliché invisible capture plot twist? Get out of here. Shane didn't feel happy at all. Otherwise, all those times I mockingly complained about similar novel plots, wouldn't it all come back to me as karma? Would I become the often mocked main character? The kind with a clueless, passive capture type? Geez, troubles. Don't talk nonsense. Shane seemed to be explaining to someone. What are you doing? Come over quickly. At this moment, Vivian's voice came from ahead. Coming. Shane immediately perked up and ran over. Vivian's team regarded the magic source as their goal, which was not much different from a pond in terms of size or scale. However, the water inside was indeed not ordinary, but rather the solidified form of magic power. In essence, it was still magic power, which emitted a hazy glow, making it look like a pond shrouded in a layer of mist, quite pleasing to the eye. If there were a place like this in the previous world, it would instantly become a tourist attraction, drawing a large crowd and making a fortune, wouldn't it? The moment Shane saw the magic source, such a thought came to mind, indicating that the appearance of the magic source was indeed quite pleasing. However, considering the presence of demons around, unless they have a death wish, no one would think of coming to such a place for tourism and sightseeing, right? Otherwise, the task of collecting the spring water would not be considered an assignment and left to adventurers. It was because the locations of magic sources were generally overrun with demons that people were unable to recklessly collect the spring water, leaving it only for adventurers to execute. Otherwise, all the magic sources would probably be drained, and they would never be left, as they are now, for adventurers to complete as tasks and earn rewards. Moreover, collecting the spring water from magic sources required skill. Because the spring water is solidified magic power, it not only requires special containers to hold it, but if it leaves the magic source, it will re-evaporate into ordinary magic power and dissipate into the atmosphere. So extracting and storing the spring water must be assisted with specialized tools, Vivian explained to Shane. Meanwhile, TL and Lu Muya retrieved a set of equipment reminiscent of a chemistry experiment from their luggage, handing it over to Marika, who was responsible for operating it to collect spring water from the magic source. Spring water extracted through specific steps can be stored for a certain time in special containers. The duration it can be stored is also related to the magic source's scale. Small magic source's spring water can be stored for about 3 days, medium about 7 days, and large can be stored for a month. Vivian explained thoroughly, unraveling a mystery for Shane. At first, Shane thought, given the usefulness of the spring water from the magic source, why not make a big move and transport it all at once? If the storage time was limited, it became understandable. This also dispelled Shane's idea of draining the magic source completely and selling the spring water in town. This was a regret, he had to admit. Furthermore, the steps to extract the spring water were rather complex. Even for Marika, a mage with the highest affinity for magic, it required a considerable amount of time. During this period, the appearance of demons was inevitable. With a sharp cry, a shadow slowly emerged from the forest. Alert! TL was the first to spot the enemy, loudly warning everyone, prompting everyone to tense up and face the enemy. Shane similarly drew the broad blade sword from his waist, standing quietly beside the group, like a low-key new recruit. Of course, Shane thought to himself, It's really tough to spot an enemy and not be able to give a warning. With a full level of enemy detection skill, Shane was naturally the first to discover the enemy in a true sense, but he couldn't alert the others, only reacting until now. The enemy that appeared wielded a long sword and round shield, its body covered with green scales, possessing a reptile-like head and tail, with a cloth wrapped around its waist. Humanoid demons. Lizard men. Vivian took out the tower shield she had been carrying on her back and equipped it. Behind as well, Lu Muya, equally nervous, clenched her fists and informed everyone. As she said, behind the emerging lizard man, silhouettes identical to it slowly appeared from the forest. They were all lizard men. 1, 2, 3, a total of 22. TL seemed to use the enemy detection skill to perceive the enemy's count, informing with a calm tone. I'll help too. Marika, who was extracting the spring water, immediately stopped working and picked up the magic wand beside her. The group then faced the horde of lizard men. At this moment, Vivian suddenly spoke to Shane. Speaking of which, it seems we haven't showcased our strength in front of you yet, have we? When Vivian said this, her smile wasn't the usual gentle and kind type, but rather it had a shrewd and capable taste. This is a good opportunity. Let me introduce our team's adventurers to you properly. As Vivian expressed this, the lizard man horde ahead started to move. With intimidating cries, the lizard men emerging from the forest charged forward. Seeing this, Shane reflexively wanted to step forward. However, someone was faster than Shane. Lu Muya, who was previously clutching her fists nervously, abruptly cried out, darting out like an arrow from a bow. In no time, she darted to the front of one lizard man at a bullet speed. That speed was so fast it surprised Shane. The lizard man also seemed startled, and upon realization, it immediately roared angrily, raising the long sword in its hand high to strike down on Lu Muya. Dangerous! Shane instinctively called out. There was no helping it. The impression Lu Muya gave Shane was always that of being fragile and timid. Seeing the lizard man attack her at such close range, Shane naturally couldn't stand by idly. Don't worry, but Vivian was exceptionally calm, without any rescue action. The next second, clang, with a crisp clash of metal, the lizardman's longsword was knocked away. Facing the struck-down longsword, Lu Muya directly punched it, knocking the longsword away. Upon closer inspection, both of Lu Muya's hands were equipped with metal gloves at some unknown time. Boom! With a dull noise, Lu Muya punched out, sending the weaponless lizard man hurtling away, stirring up a fierce gust. The scene was quite eye-catching, leaving Shane stunned. Instead, Vivian, utterly unsurprised, spoke out. Lumia, our team's vanguard, races from the dog race among the beast man, possessing extraordinary smell and the naturally powerful physique of the beast man, hence uses hand-to-hand combat and body enhancement as her primary combat methods, specializing in these two skills, both leveled up to level 6, currently at level 44, a 4th-rank adventurer. As Vivian's words fell, Lu Muya had already darted towards a second lizard man, once again knocking away its weapon and sending it skyward with a punch. Immediately, burn off. Marika raised her magic wand, channeling magic power, causing the crystal on the magic wand to bloom with light. Boom! The airborne lizard man erupted in flames, instantly incinerating it to ashes. Marika, our team's mage, race as you can see is an elf. Because elves are close to nature with extremely high affinity for magic and magic, they are naturally born mages. Even among peers of the same class, Marika's magic is top-notch. She is proficient in Flame Series and Ice Series magic. Aside from the must-learn skills for mages, chanting, and meditation, Marika used all her skill points on Magic Fire and Magic Ice, leveling them to level 4, thus able to use intermediate magic in these two series. Currently at level 42, also a 4th-rank adventurer. Saying this, Vivian suddenly turned and slammed into the side. Boom! A lizard man that silently approached was fiercely knocked away by Vivian's tower shield, slammed against a tree trunk, becoming barely alive. As for me, You should already know. As the team captain, I am a defense-type vanguard, with skills such as one-handed sword, shield, light equipment, deflection, taunt, and damage reduction, currently at level 50, 5th class adventurer. Vivian turned her head, showing a smile to Shane. Next, let me introduce you to our team's strongest and also the foremost genius within Limigen. As if writing Vivian's words, a petite figure whisked past everyone. Ooh, the sound of the wind howled through the mountains. It was not a wind brought by nature, but by a person. At this moment, the petite girl in the black robe transformed into a gust of wind, dashing forward while lifting her head and looking at the lizard man crowd, her eyes under the hood gleaming coldly. In the next instant, a pair of weapons fell into the girl's hands. These were a pair of lethal blades with fearsome, serrated edges. Holding such a pair of deadly blades, TL darted into the lizard man crowd. Huh, huh, the lizard men cried out. But that was the only reaction they could manage. Slash, as the sound of flesh tearing rang out. One lizard man had not even reacted before its body was sliced open by a fearsome blade, splattering a large amount of blood. TL decisively and swiftly slew the nearest lizard man and flicked the blood off the blade. Huh, huh. The nearby lizard men reacted, each one becoming furious as they surrounded TL, unabashedly swinging their long swords at her without a shred of mercy. In response, TL seemed to have already mastered the enemy's movements and actions, her figure flashing and darting like a gust of wind, creating a series of afterimages and evading all the incoming sword slashes. Moreover, as she evaded, TL used the momentum from her footwork and dodging to close in rapidly along the lizardman's weapons. Slash! The blade flashed, severing the lizardman's head, leaving its body and head parted. Slash! 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 The blades flashed repeatedly, relentlessly slicing open one lizardman's body after another. TL darted about at high speed, her dual blades like the scythes of a death god, continuously reaping the lives of lizard men. It was simply exceedingly bloody. Shane showed a surprised expression. Even he could tell that TL's combat power was clearly superior to the rest of her team. Vivian, as if she had expected this scene, gave a slight smile. TL, a guerrilla warrior trained to focus on attack and explosive power, excels at one-hit kills and targeting weaknesses. To kill the enemy as quickly as possible, she planned the best skill distribution and mastered them all through rigorous training back when she was level 1. Vivian voiced her words as she watched that Gale-like figure. The skill that enhances blade weapon technique and attack power, dual blades. The skill that ignores a certain degree of defensive power, penetration. The skill that raises one's speed with increasing levels, acceleration. The advanced evasion skill that not only allows dodging enemy attacks, but also utilizes every means to approach the enemy swiftly, close-range evasion. Adding on the skill enemy detection, which can sense hostile entities, all of TL's acquired skills are types used for approaching, detecting, and assuredly killing the enemy, all of which she has raised to level 5 or above. Since the number of skill points acquired depends on an individual's talent and potential, TL was able to raise so many skills to level 5 or above, indicating just how many skill points she got when leveling up and how significant her talent and potential were. With a current level of 59, she was just one step away from reaching level 60, needed to become a 6th rank adventurer this year, and TL was only 16 years old, exactly 2 years younger than me. Even Lu Muya was a year older than her, so TL was considered the most famous genius in Limigen, with talent and potential so high that only one person in the entire Mitra Kingdom was probably stronger. Vivian's statement made Shane raise his eyebrows. His gaze also focused on TL. I didn't expect this girl to be a renowned genius. Moreover, she was the strongest member of Vivian's team, and her level was actually as high as 59, something Shane hadn't imagined. What surprised Shane even more was that TL was the youngest in Vivian's team, and even Lu Muya, who clung to her as if she were a pillar, was a year older. As for Marika, the elf girl not mentioned, she was probably the oldest in Vivian's team, right? After all, Shane remembered that an Adventurers Guild staff mentioned that elves weren't considered adults until they turned 150 and could become adventurers. Thus, TL was, of course, the youngest in the team, yet also the strongest and most talented. Then, TL also has another skill. Vivian spoke with an impressive tone. Look carefully, that skill is incredible. It was indeed incredible, because Shane had already seen TL using this skill. Under the circumstances of its companions being continually slain, a lizard man, being TL's next target, seemed to become fearful, directly abandoning its long sword and instead raising the round shield equipped on its other hand to protect itself tightly. Yet, facing a shield-bearing enemy, TL did not avoid it. Instead, she accelerated and charged forward. Buzz! In her hand, one of the dual blades suddenly began to tremble. A surge of magic power infused the blade, enveloping the blade edge and causing it to shimmer with a red glow. Die! TL coldly declared with a merciless voice. Slash! As the blade flashed with a red glow, the lizard man, along with its raised round shield, was cut in two. That is... Shane's face once again showed an expression of surprise. Vivian's explanation quickly followed from the side. That is an advanced skill that should only have an extremely low chance of being acquired at level 70. Magical Sword. Vivian explained. As the name suggests, it is a skill that adds magical attacks to one's weapon. The higher the level, the stronger the power, and it can flexibly extend and change shape. Even at level 1, the attack power is sufficient to cut through steel. Historically, there's stories of people splitting city walls, or even the sea with a magical sword. It is the skill that all melee fighters dream of having. There is a significant difference in status in the industry between those who have mastered this skill and those who have not, because high-level demons, and even members of the demon clan, often have high defense, making physical attacks very difficult to cause significant damage. The skill can deal effective damage even to elemental demons that are completely immune to physical attacks or to demons without a solid form. TL acquired this skill 3 months ago and has trained it to level 2, which is another reason that makes her a renowned genius. Upon hearing this, Shane's thoughts became active. Sure, here's the translation of the text. Quickly, all the lizard men were defeated. Not only were they struck down by TL's sharp blade, but also by Lu Muya's fists and Marika's magic. These 3 girls all demonstrated exceptional strength, especially TL, which somewhat changed Shane's view of her. Even Lu Muya and Marika gazed at TL with eyes of admiration. As expected, TL is still so amazing. No, she's probably become even more amazing than before, right? Lu Muya and Marika huddled around TL, chattering incessantly with such remarks. It seems these 2 girls were little fangirls of TL. But have they forgotten that TL is younger than them? Well, there's no rule against admiring someone younger. Wasn't it the same in the previous world where a bunch of girls went crazy for young heartthrobs, much younger than themselves? Used to it. Used to it. You all worked hard. While Shane was lost in thought, Vivian came forward to console her friends, her expression once again filled with warmth and gentleness, completely different from her earlier shrewd demeanor. Of course, TL didn't take everyone's praises to heart. This level is nothing, TL said flatly. It's at least not comparable to that princess. Those words caught Shane's attention. Princess? Who might that be? Without noticing Shane's pondering, Vivian spoke with a wry smile. The person you're comparing to is a bit odd. In Mitra and throughout the entire human realm, no one can surpass her. Those who can truly defeat her, even searching the divine world, demon realm, and human realm, might only be from the level of the 3 great goddesses and the 6 great demons, right? Vivian's words were met with TL's silence. But it wasn't silent rebuttal, it was acknowledgement. Clearly, TL also agreed with Vivian's statement. But, Shane suddenly paused. For some reason, TL turned to look at him. Although he couldn't see the face and eyes under her hood, Shane felt the gaze TL cast upon him was filled with contemplation. It seemed she was evaluating Shane, comparing him to something or someone. This display left Shane somewhat puzzled. However, Shane was more concerned about something else. The magical sword, just now, was impressive. After considering his words, Shane hinted at TL in this manner. TL was silent for a moment, then nodded, considering it a response. If anyone could learn that move, it would be an honor, no matter who they are. Seeing TL's weak reaction, Shane's mouth twitched as he continued with a veiled hint. This time, TL gave Shane a strange look, then still coldly nodded, providing the minimum level of response. Though you're young, there's a saying, those who achieve are taught first, so you'd definitely be able to be anyone's teacher, right? With a stiff smile, Shane continued with his crazy hinting. TL fell silent and stopped responding. Shane suddenly found himself a loss for words. This girl is really hard to deal with. What were they doing? I don't know. Is this some kind of code? On the side, Vivian, Lumuya, and Marika exchanged glances in confusion. The atmosphere on the scene suddenly turned a bit awkward. Shane and TL just stared at each other, silently. After a while, Shane felt he needed to take the initiative. Shane once again simulated hundreds of crazy hints in his heart, ready to make his move. Unfortunately, Shane's ambition was completely cut short by what TL said. You want to learn? TL directly hit the nail on the head. Shane, who was just about to make his move, was instantly choked, and the frenzy of hints that were about to spew out transformed into the following response. Who wants to learn? I don't want to learn. Shane's words turned out like this, and his tone was inexplicably haughty. At this, even TL, Vivian, Lumuya, and Marika fell silent, lost for words. Shane realized his mistake and wished he could slap himself. Am I some kind of tsundere? Shane wanted to die of embarrassment. However, at this moment, TL said something surprising. I can teach you. In front of everyone, TL actually said that. TL. Vivian was instantly surprised. Lumuya was also shocked. You going to teach? Marika was equally full of surprise. Because anyone who knew TL knew that this genius girl wasn't someone enthusiastic about communicating with others. She was usually quite cold to people, only somewhat relaxing in front of her teammates. But that was just an attitude change. Essentially, she wasn't the type to actively help others. Moreover, TL previously had a guarded attitude towards Shane, always wary of him. Such a sudden change in TL was indeed unexpected. Even more unexpected was that TL so directly declared she would teach Shane the magical sword skill. That's the magical sword, you know? Even a level 70 melee can't easily learn such advanced skills. Marika blurted out what anyone familiar with the situation would want to say. Such an advanced skill that even level 70 melees can barely learn. TL had been acclaimed as a premier genius for mastering it before level 60. Yet now she was going to teach it to a level 10 novice adventurer? People who knew would certainly say, stop messing around. But TL was unmoved. Come find me after returning to Lemidgen. After saying that, TL turned and left. Lumuya and Marika exchanged glances again, then hurriedly followed. Shane hadn't yet reacted and stood there blinking rapidly. The remaining Vivian looked at Shane with a meaningful gaze and then smiled. See, I told you someone actually had dropped their guard around you. You just didn't know it, Vivian said in a light-hearted tone, leaving Shane speechless. All right, the following events proceeded smoothly in accordance with the battle plan Vivian had established. After Marika extracted the spring water, the group remained hidden around the area, waiting for the demons to appear. A considerable number of demons, drawn by the magic source's allure, emerged, with their variety as vast as when Shane first spent 10 days in this world's forest. Among them was even a swarm of thorny-horned demons, which Shane had previously annihilated, making him feel nostalgic? No way. That period was undoubtedly a dark chapter in Shane's history, almost akin to a psychological trauma. He nearly couldn't resist charging in to wipe out that group of thorny-horned demons once again. Unfortunately, it seemed unnecessary for Shane to take action. As Vivian had initially stated, the demons attracted by the magic source were all engaged in a fierce battle over the spring water. The scene was far more spectacular than when TL slaughtered the lizard man horde. featuring not only a fiery and electrifying display from various demons, but also a gruesome feast of mutual biting and devouring, making Shane feel like he was watching an unprecedented horror movie. It was somewhat nauseating. Without the 10 days of experience in the forest, Shane felt he would have vomited on the spot. It's worth mentioning that the girls of Vivian's team were much more composed than Shane. Even the most timid, Lumuya, watched the scene with a serious expression, unfazed. Their psychological resilience far exceeded that of modern girls who would scream for half a day at the sight of cockroaches and mice. After all, they are adventurers. They've grown accustomed to such scenes. At least Shane thought he should learn this level of composure. This is the downfall of a character blessed with overpowered abilities. Tons of strength, but lacking in everything else. So, isn't there some skill that might instantly enlighten someone into an ice-cool, suave leader? Oh, my plug-in. While Shane was lost in his thoughts, the fire lizards, the target of Vivian's team, finally appeared in droves. They also joined the brutal fighting, with many eventually meeting their end at the claws and fangs of other demons, leaving behind their carcasses. The battle raged on until a level 62 rhinoceros-like demon arrived, signaling the end. This rhinoceros demon demonstrated overwhelming power, slaughtering all competitors before finally drinking the entire spring dry and departing contentedly. Only then did Vivian's group emerge from their hiding spot in the bushes. "Is this okay?" Shane turned to Vivian and asked. He was naturally referring to allowing the rhinoceros demon to drink the spring water dry and letting it go unchallenged. "No need to worry," Vivian shook her head, saying, "After a night, the magic power from the atmosphere and the earth will gather at the magic source again, materializing in a spring water. There's no need to fight such a high-level, dangerous demon beyond our commission's objectives." Hearing Vivian's explanation, Shane felt relieved. No wonder you mentioned something about reactivating the magic source. That likely meant the magic source would refill with spring water, right? Usually, magic sources operate this way. They attract large numbers of demons to battle each other, get consumed by the victorious demon, and form new spring water the next day, repeating the cycle. People call the stage when a magic source fills with water the activation stage. Vivian thoroughly explained why they had camped at the base of the mountain the day before. It was simply because at that time, it wasn't suitable to venture into areas bustling with demons, nor was it suitable for collecting spring water from the magic source. Wasn't the magic source's water probably dried up by then? And since Vivian didn't want to miss the activation time of the magic source, they camped directly at the mountain's base, collecting the spring water before the demons were attracted by the magic source. In a short while, those low-level, weak, and timid demons reluctant to compete for the magic source will be drawn here by the blood and bodies of the other demons, Vivian continued. Unable to compete for the magic source, they'll target these demon corpses, feeding on their flesh to absorb whatever magic remains, gradually increasing their strength. We should gather the demon materials before they arrive. That was the goal of Vivian's team. Thus, under Vivian's guidance, the team began disassembling the demon carcasses with practiced ease. During this process, Vivian also imparted knowledge to Shane, such as how to disassemble demons, which parts of which demons were in demand, could be sold for money, and how to preserve and transport these materials, among other various information. Vivian explained it all to Shane. Vivian's explanations were simple and easy to understand, allowing Shane, an otherworlder with little knowledge of this world, to comprehend. Of course, during this time, several demons drew near. However, these demons were low level, and it seemed Vivian intended for Shane to practice with them. Yet for some reason, she ultimately abandoned the idea. "They don't seem suitable for you to practice with. We'll find you the right opponent next time." Vivian hesitated before those words, leaving Shane to nod in ignorant agreement. In the end, all those demons were dealt with by Lumuya and Marika. "Is everyone ready?" At the foot of the Mangar mountain range, sitting atop the carriage, Vivian called to the carriage's interior. "Ray, ready. We can go now. Sister Vivian." Lumuya responded nervously while Marika replied with energy, making Vivian smile. "Then, let's head back to Lamidjan. Vivian spurred the carriage forward. Upon closer inspection, one could see the roof and cargo area of the carriage were stacked full of luggage crammed with demon materials, testament to a fruitful harvest. Shane also sat inside, watching the Mangar mountain range fade into the distance, reflecting on his first adventure's conclusion. But Shane wasn't sentimental. Rather, he eagerly anticipated returning to Lamidjan. Once I'm back, I'll first learn the magical sword skill from TL. I must learn as many skills as I can. Otherwise, wasting skill points is a shame. Plus, magic. I really want to learn magic. There were many things Shane wanted to do. Compared to disputes between heroes and demon kings, the divine race and demon clan, and troublesome matters like peace among the three clans, Shane was more interested in these pursuits. This other world is quite interesting after all. Adventure was also quite fun, right? Lamidjan, Adventurers Guild. Just like always, the Adventurers Guild was as noisy as ever today. In the first floor hall of the guild, adventurers wearing various equipment and carrying different weapons gathered, as if to vent their emotions, eating meat in big bites and drinking in gulps, a scene that seemed to have become the norm. Of course, some people gathered in front of the bulletin board, selecting various quests, while queues formed at the guild staff's counters, contributing to the lively scene. Until a certain moment, the noise in the guild noticeably decreased. The reason was simple. Because a strikingly noticeable team in every sense appeared in the first floor hall of the guild. Look, Vivian's team is back. Oh, they're quite fast this time, huh? Miss Vivian is as beautiful as ever. Marika is still breathtakingly beautiful as well. No wonder she's an elf. Little Lumuya is also very cute, right? Hey, keep your voice down. If TL hears that, you'll be in trouble. As expected, all the women in that team are too good-looking. I really want to join that team. Look, that newbie is still with them. Seems like he didn't do anything that annoyed them. Really a lucky guy. Amidst such chatter, Shane and his party returned to the Adventurers Guild, stepping into the guild hall once again. Shane naturally could hear the murmurs around him, and he could even feel the gazes full of assessments and even prickling eyes, silently shrugging his shoulders mentally. It really was a predictable reaction. Shane no longer saw it as a big deal. As for the members of Vivian's team, they seemed to have completely gotten used to such stares and went straight to a counter, ignoring the others around them. Welcome back, Miss Vivian. The guild staff immediately stood up and greeted Vivian. Yes, we're back. Vivian gave a gentle smile and went straight to the point, saying, We've completed the quest we took beforehand. With that, Vivian gestured to Marika beside her. Here is the water from the medium magic source, 3 bottles in total, along with the skin of the fire lizards we've also collected. Marika placed a package on the counter and said politely, Please check it. Got it, 3 bottles of medium magic source water and the skin from 30 fire lizards. We have indeed received them. The guild staff only glanced into the package and immediately confirmed the delivery of the quest items. It was unclear whether it was due to trust in Vivian's team or an inherent ability to quickly verify such materials. And he continued, Moreover, the guild has already confirmed with the caravan that all the blood-sucking vines on the main road to Phrygia have been completely cleared. The 3 tasks you took were confirmed completed. Such efficiency was impressive, befitting a guild with influence spread worldwide. These are your rewards. The guild staff pushed out a tray filled with shiny coins. Gold level quest, collection of spring water, reward, 20 gold coins. Silver level quest, fire lizard skin, reward, 10 gold coins. Silver level quest, eliminate blood-sucking vines, reward, also 10 gold coins. A total of 40 gold coins. Please confirm. Upon hearing this, Vivian nodded, collecting the gold coins and handing them to Marika while conversing with the guild staff. Are there currently any collection requests for lizard man scales, thorny horn demon horns, or hard-haired spider venom sacs? There is a request for thorny horn demon horns. Although there is no collection request for hard-haired spider venom sacs, the magic potion workshop on the Western Alley seems to need toxic materials. Apprentices regularly come to the guild to post requests, so next time you can give it directly to them. As for lizard man scales, there doesn't seem to be any demand right now. What about the purple-eyed beast eyeballs, stone statue ghost hearts, and sharp-toothed salamander tendons? Sorry, someone already brought in the purple-eyed beast eyeballs this morning, and sharp-toothed salamander tendons were already in stock at the guild warehouse, so they were just handed over. However, stone statue ghost hearts are rare materials, and many people would want them. They could appear at any time, and we will trade with them then. Thank you. We have some materials here. No problem. These are all high-level demon materials with high demand, and someone will soon come to request their collection. Then I'll leave it to you. Understood. Vivian conversed so smoothly with the guild staff, then asked Lumuya, who had been carrying a backpack larger than herself, to step forward and hand the backpack to the guild staff. What's going on? Shane was a bit confused. Surprisingly, TL, who had been silent by the side, answered Shane's question. This is to confirm whether the materials we collected outside the quests have any demand. TL said quietly, because when adventurers fight demons outside, they often deal with demons unrelated to the quest targets and collect their materials. These materials, although not within the quest scope, might have requests for collecting them or defeating such demons from the guild. So usually, adventurers can report to the guild to complete the quest they did not take but have already completed. Shane was enlightened. It made sense. If during adventuring, one collected materials of other demons, and if the guild had collection requests for those materials, one could hand them over post-completion, finishing those tasks and earning extra quest rewards. Even if there was no current request for collecting them, none could say there wouldn't be in the future, so adventurers would also hand some materials to the guild for management, allowing them to provide them directly when the need for those materials arose, completing those tasks. Some people don't do this, though. They take the demon materials they collected to shops in the town to sell for money. Ultimately, it depends on the individual. TL spoke in a flat tone. Our team usually hands materials over to the guild unless they are particularly high-level and valuable. If you think this is not appropriate, you can propose it to Vivian, who will then calculate your share of materials and hand them to you to manage yourself. This is our team's approach. That was quite humane. Shane thought so while saying, I have no objections, so let's handle it this way. TL nodded without saying more. Before long, Vivian returned with Lu Muya and Marika, having handled the task and material matters. Lucky us, several materials were in demand, and we completed a few more quests, earning a reward of 60 gold coins. Vivian said with a smile, while holding a pouch with the distributed amount. We earned a total of 100 gold coins for this task. Each person can get 20 gold coins in rewards. Here, take it. With that, Vivian handed 4 pouches to the group. This money is easy to make, Shane thought, reaching out to the pouch given to him. Just then, a hand suddenly reached from the side, snatching the pouch that Vivian was about to hand to Shane. It's not suitable for a newbie to take so much reward. Better use it to treat everyone to drinks. A voice full of laughter sounded, reaching everyone's ears. The sudden voice and situation left everyone present dumbfounded. Shane also raised an eyebrow, turned his head, and looked at the owner of the hand that had snatched away the money bag. This was a young girl who had appeared in the hall at some unknown time and was standing beside Vivian, seemingly of the same age as Vivian. She was dressed in attire resembling a military uniform and wore glasses, exuding an aura of intelligence and competence. Riley. Seeing this person, Vivian was first stunned and then called out her name. The newcomer was Riley. The surrounding guild staff and adventurers immediately stood up together. Guild Master. Everyone greeted Riley in this manner, including TL, including Lu Muya, and also including Marika. Guild Master. Shane was likewise surprised. You're Shane, aren't you? Riley looked at Shane, squinting her keen eyes behind the glasses, then smiled and said, Nice to meet you. I'm Riley Lazahad, the Guild Master of the Lamigian Adventurer Guild. Please take care in the future. This was the first time Shane heard someone report their surname. Moreover, it was the Guild Master of the Lamigian Adventurer Guild. Why did you come down? Vivian asked with a bit of surprise and amazement, an attitude that clearly showed she was familiar with Riley. And indeed, she was. I heard you all came back. I just finished my work, so I came down to see. Riley's gaze swept over Vivian's team and the large backpack on the counter, and she smiled. It seems you had quite a successful trip. Yeah, it went smoothly. Nothing unexpected happened. Vivian nodded and seemed amused as she said, "What? Are you worried? Do I look like such a cold-blooded person?" Riley rolled her eyes and said, "Since I gave you the extra work, would not checking and make it seem like I'm just shirking responsibility?" "I didn't say that." Vivian's amused look turned into a laugh. Their conversation seemed so natural and familiar, letting others know the nature of their relationship. The surrounding adventurers and guild staff were also not surprised, clearly aware of this matter. "What is going on here?" Shane stepped back, avoiding like making room, returning to TL's side and asking quietly. "As you can see, Vivian and Guildmaster Riley have been friends for a long time," TL replied calmly. "Before Vivian became an adventurer and before Guildmaster Riley became the Guildmaster, they already knew each other. They've been friends for at least 10 years. It's said that Vivian chose to come to Lemidgen to become an adventurer because Guildmaster Riley was assigned here. In other words, these two were childhood friends? It was actually Guildmaster Riley who arranged for you to join our team. Just like Vivian, Guildmaster Riley is known for being very supportive of newcomers. You ought to thank her properly. Otherwise, with your situation, you might have become a target of oppression at the Adventurers Guild." TL glanced at Shane as she spoke. "Also, I'm sure you've noticed that Guildmaster Riley isn't just any ordinary person. She's the only daughter of well-known great nobles. Even the lord of this territory can't afford to be disrespectful in front of her, so take heed yourself." No wonder even the surrounding adventurers were so polite and respectful when Riley appeared. "Great nobles," Shane muttered softly. It seemed that in this world, only nobles had surnames. As Shane was pondering these things, Vivian had already started to question Riley. "That said, you came down. Why did you take Shane's share of the reward?" Vivian asked, somewhat displeased. "That's quite disrespectful, you know." "Indeed it is." Riley didn't deny it, acknowledging it openly, and then turned to Shane with a meaningful look. "What's your take, newcomer?" This capable guild master shifted the topic to Shane. Shane wasn't swayed, because he had already realized why Riley did what she did. "I think what the guild master said makes sense," Shane replied candidly. "As a new adventurer, taking so much of the reward isn't appropriate. As a newly recruited member who was only level 10 and hadn't learned any skills, joining Vivian's team had already sparked various debates. If he took an equal share of the reward like the senior team members, it wouldn't be reasonable. At least, to others, Shane was just tagging along with Vivian's team for the trip. Given his level, there was no way he could complete silver level or gold level commissions. If Shane had accepted those rewards, by the following day, he would have received criticism from the entire Adventurers Guild. This not only would have been detrimental to Shane, but also would have affected Vivian's team. This guild master must have come here for this reason. Given that Riley was Vivian's childhood friend and had known her for over 10 years, she surely understood Vivian's character and ways, knowing she wouldn't shortchange Shane and hence came to intervene. In other words, Riley was here to help Shane and Vivian avoid potential criticism. "I didn't contribute much on this commission. The credit belongs to everyone else. I was just watching from the side," Shane said with a clear sense of self-awareness. "I'll shamelessly take just 1 gold coin as a reward this time." This made sense. After all, the blood-sucking vine was eradicated by Marika using magic, the spring water was collected by Marika, and the demon parts were handled by TL and Lumuya. Shane had only defeated 1 golem, which wasn't related to the commission. Taking too much of the reward wouldn't be fitting. If not for feeling that Vivian wouldn't accept it, Shane wouldn't have wanted to take any reward at all. After all, Shane had the pride of a man. While he had been cared for by Vivian, he couldn't take advantage in other aspects so boldly. He hadn't thought of this earlier, but now that Riley had pointed it out, Shane naturally wouldn't accept the reward. But Vivian furrowed her brows, seemingly unable to accept it. "Come on, he already said it, so don't be stubborn." Riley patted Vivian's shoulder. "There are times when kindness needs to be selective. Not being able to differentiate between public and private is one of your few weaknesses. It's not the first time you brought in newcomers. You should have realized this earlier, and this time you should reflect on it. As she spoke, Riley took out a gold coin from the snatch money bag and approached Shane. You've got a promising future, kid. I'm keeping an eye on you. Riley reached out, took Shane's hand, and placed the gold coin in his palm, showing him an appreciative smile. Thanks for the compliment. Shane returned the smile, looking at this generous yet meticulous guild master, and praised her inwardly. After that, Riley dragged a displeased Vivian upstairs. I imagine they had a lot to talk about, right? The guild members seemed to breathe a sigh of relief once Riley left, returning to their noisy state. Meanwhile, TL, Lumuya, and Marika stayed behind and approached Shane, who was still watching the direction Riley and Vivian had left. Let's go. TL spoke calmly, and, with Lumuya and Marika, walked out of the guild. Shane withdrew his gaze, and, staying near TL and the others, left the guild hall. Once they left the guild and came outside, Shane was called by someone. Lumuya cautiously approached Shane for conversation. Shane looked at Lumuya. Being stared at by Shane, Lumuya immediately shrank her neck, seemingly reluctant to speak to Shane. But in the end, Lumuya gathered her courage. This is for you. Lumuya held a small bag in her hands, closing her eyes as she offered it to Shane. Her timid and shy demeanor almost made Shane think this cute beastman girl was offering him a love letter, confessing to him. Unfortunately, what Lumuya handed to Shane was not a love letter, but a pouch of money. What is this? Shane was puzzled. That. Lumuya stammered, unable to form a complete sentence, making people anxious. Seeing this, Marika hesitated for a moment before speaking up for her. That was secretly given to us by President Riley just now, Marika said softly. I think this is likely intended for you. I see. Shane was momentarily stunned, looking at the pouch before realizing. Outwardly, in front of everyone, she helped us dispel any future criticism. But in reality, did that president not intend for me to only receive a single gold coin as payment? This was what Shane thought. However, he guessed incorrectly. That is not your payment, TL said, her tone still calm. Given the president's style, it's probably the aid money she's giving you, right? Aid money. Shane could not grasp the meaning of this. For this puzzled Shane, Marika explained once again. Actually, President Riley has always been supporting newcomers, Marika said. Newcomers often face difficulties due to external factors, such as not having enough funds to buy initial equipment or being injured and unable to afford magic potions for healing, leading to setbacks in adventures or even losses of life. Since taking office, President Riley has frequently proposed to the Adventurers Guild headquarters in the royal capital to establish a newcomer support mechanism to help them overcome initial challenges. TL had also mentioned that, just like Vivian, Riley was someone who took special care of newcomers. Shane finally caught a glimpse of how she was looking out for newcomers. However, this proposal has never been approved, Marika said regretfully. Because if that were the case, there would be people who become adventurers solely for the newcomer's allowance, only to quit or deliberately fail the 1-month assessment after getting the money, using it for their indulgence rather than adventure activities, leading to significant losses for the guild. Therefore, this matter was unrealistic and unlikely to be approved, even if the aid was given not to newly assessed trainee adventurers, but to officially qualified newcomers. The distribution alone could impose a hefty financial burden on the guild. After all, the condition to become an adventurer was merely reaching level 10, a level where many existed in the world. Even if only 1% managed to pass the adventurer's assessment and become official adventurers, providing aid money would still burden the guild. Hence, this issue was left unresolved. But President Riley continued to aid newcomers in her own way. If she assessed someone to have enough potential to become an outstanding adventurer, she would aid them financially in her personal capacity, Marika explained to Shane. This isn't much of a secret among adventurers, so this should be the aid money from the president for you. After hearing this, Shane was not surprised to feel astonishment. Is that president really doing such things? Shane had not expected this at all. TL, however, expressed her view. The real reason that President came to the guild hall was likely to see you, TL said blandly. Otherwise, even if she is the president and the only daughter of a great noble, she can't forcibly interfere in another's team and meddle with internal reward distribution. In the end, how to distribute the rewards was up to the adventurers within the team themselves. Although Riley's intent was for Shane and Vivian, intervening in another's team affairs in such a manner was improper, no matter how you looked at it. Shane felt he should not receive such a large payment, so he saw nothing wrong, but others might find it unpleasant if it involved them. Speaking of which, Vivian still looked a bit unhappy until the end, and was probably questioning Riley now. However, Riley's appearance was not to stop Vivian's distribution. Even if the president knew Sister Vivian well, she wouldn't have expected her to distribute the reward directly in public, would she? Marika reminded. Indeed, distribution of rewards does not necessarily have to happen publicly. Vivian could have taken the reward with her team and left, distributing it in private. This way, no one would know how much Shane received, and no one could criticize. In other words, the president was not trying to prevent me from receiving too much reward and avoid disparagement. She came to see whether I needed assistance, but she happened to observe Vivian distributing the rewards publicly, felt it was inappropriate, and thus intervened. Shane understood. It seems to be the case, TL nodded and said. From your actions and Vivian's stance, the president determined you could be helped, so she secretly passed the funds to Lu Muya, who brought them to you. Why, yes. Lu Muya said nervously. Please accept it. Saying this, Lu Muya lowered her head, offering the pouch to Shane again in a manner akin to handing over a love letter. Her face flushed with embarrassment. Shane smiled slightly and finally accepted the pouch, opening it to glance at the contents. What he saw startled Shane. So much. The pouch was filled with gleaming coins, at least 100 pieces. It should include the amount taken from you earlier. TL provided Shane with an explanation. That's too much. Shane frowned. 100 gold coins, equivalent to 1,000,000 copper coins, was akin to several million in the previous world. Even if it's aid money, giving so much to a newcomer, is it really okay? Moreover, Shane had already decided not to take an excessive reward. If the pouch included the part just taken from him, Shane did not wish to accept it. In response, TL offered only one sentence. Consider it as the president's expectation for you. Repay her in the future. This statement left Shane silent. All right. Shane remained silent for a moment before finally saying, I'll remember this favor. Riley Lazahad. Indeed, a fascinating woman. Meanwhile, in the guildmaster's room on the top floor of the Adventurers Guild, Riley was unsurprisingly being grumbled at by Vivian. All right, it's my fault, okay? Riley conceded. I was just trying to lend you a hand. How did it end up like this? The head of the Limigian Adventurer Guild wore a helpless expression, likely already dreading Vivian's persistent complaints. But Vivian maintained her stance. No matter what, this is an internal matter of our team. You forcing your way in doesn't bode well for you, does it? Vivian was still holding on to her grievance. Yet, Vivian wasn't entirely wrong. If, as the guild master, you casually interfere with the affairs of adventurer teams, especially something as sensitive as payment, and rumors of it are spread by someone with an agenda, other adventurer teams might start harboring a distance from you. Is that all right? Vivian expressed her concerns. This wasn't an exaggeration. Riley understood that what she did today could lead to trouble if not handled properly or if exploited by someone with ill intentions. However, Riley wasn't too worried either. Do you think my 3 years as guildmaster in Limigian were just a sham? Riley smiled and said, Situations like this, I'll nip them in the bud before they can even arise. Others might not know, but don't you? Upon hearing this from Riley, Vivian finally felt a bit relieved. Just as Riley understood Vivian, Vivian also knew Riley very well. She clearly knew how meticulous the only daughter of this great noble house was, and would not allow such possibilities to occur. While other high-ranking individuals might only showcase their abilities after an incident occurs, solving it perfectly to display their intelligence and gain the world's praise, Riley was different. She didn't want to exhaust herself solving problems when they occurred. Instead, she was keen on taking measures to nip risks in the bud before they happened. Thanks to this approach, most people in Lamigian viewed Riley as noble and kind-hearted, seeing her support for newcomers as a benevolent gesture. Little did they know, Riley's actions stemmed from her desire to eliminate potential risks. Newcomers frequently encountering danger, then assist them by enhancing their equipment and supplies to ensure their safety to the greatest extent possible. Struggling to find excellent adventurers? Then give them enough attention during their novice stages and nurture them. These policies were all due to Riley's foresight and diligence in preparing for the future. Following this working style, Riley had previously prevented several significant events from occurring, keeping her 3-year tenure peaceful and uneventful. Thus, people only recognized the guild master's kindness and generosity without realizing how meticulous she was in identifying the origins of various events and extinguishing them. This is why newcomers like Shane would capture Riley's attention and subsequently be assigned to Vivian's team. Riley also went directly to the hall to meet Shane after Vivian's team returned. If it were someone else, they might not have acted so directly, voluntarily meeting the person they wanted to see. Instead, they would have sent guild staff to bring the person to them, upholding their status as guildmaster. To be honest, the reason Vivian cared so much for newcomers and was so committed to nurturing them was largely due to Riley's influence. Otherwise, gentle as she was, Vivian wasn't inclined to care for everyone indiscriminately. Naturally, Riley, who had such an influence on Vivian, wouldn't allow any discordant rumors to surface. "All right," Vivian sighed. "I know I don't think as far ahead as you do, nor am I as smart." Vivian could only admit this. "Don't say that." Riley chuckled lightly, picked up a quill pen, tapped it on the desk, and said, "I'm quite glad I went out there this time. Otherwise, how would I have met such a rookie?" "What?" Vivian asked in surprise. "Have you already seen Shane's extraordinary traits?" "No, I haven't," Riley candidly replied. "But seeing how you and TL and the rest of your team treat that rookie, I can guess there's something about him that makes you pay attention." Clearly, Riley had keenly observed the subtle attitudes of Vivian's team towards Shane. "Originally, I thought because of past events, putting you aside, TL and the others would have been quite unwelcoming to that rookie," Riley added with a half-smile. "But today, apart from little Lou Muya still acting the same, the three of you seem to have an unusual attitude towards that newcomer. Especially TL's behavior, which surprised Riley the most, because Riley had never seen any male adventurers get that close to TL. Not to mention male adventurers. Even female ones would be ignored if they were too unfamiliar. This could be described as the aloofness of a genius, something Riley had grown accustomed to. And the more accustomed she was, the more surprised she was today. For TL, who once dared to break the limbs of a noble family heir for being handsy, to act like this, there must be something exceptional about that newcomer. Riley looked at Vivian and asked, "So, have you discovered anything about him?" This was also a task given to Vivian by Riley, to probe Shane to a certain extent and see if this newcomer really hadn't learned any skills or if there was something unusual about him. "However, sorry, I really don't want to talk about this." Vivian was silent for a moment, then gave this reply. "Don't want to say?" Riley had not anticipated Vivian's response, and she was momentarily stunned. Shane indeed has secrets. Vivian suddenly gave a bitter smile. "But from the little I've glimpsed, I can only say that this secret might be bigger than we imagined, and I'm afraid we can't handle it." These words left Riley speechless. "Is it very troublesome?" Riley straightened her back slightly and looked directly at Vivian. "Yes, it could be very troublesome." Vivian met Riley's gaze and spoke very seriously. "I hope it's not what I'm thinking. Otherwise, Shane's existence could very likely cause the fragile balance maintained between the three clans to completely collapse." At this moment, even Riley couldn't help but change her expression. "Has it really come to that?" Riley frowned deeply, and her tapping on the desk quickened. Vivian knew this was Riley's habit when thinking. There was no doubt that Riley was weighing the pros and cons in her mind at a speed unimaginable to ordinary people. And this moment didn't last long. Since even you say so, it seems I have no choice but to believe it. Riley reached this conclusion. What do you plan to do? Vivian inquired. What else can I do? Riley replied with annoyance. Help clean up after that rookie, of course. Clean up after him? Vivian immediately understood and asked, Have you investigated Shane? To an extent, Riley pouted and said, You know my nature. I like to prepare for the worst. Since I've taken special care of that newcomer, I naturally had to do a preliminary investigation, just in case something came up. But in the end, Riley found nothing, as if Shane had suddenly emerged from a crack in the stone. Originally, I thought it was just because the time was too short, so I couldn't find anything useful. But now it seems that this investigation not only can't continue, but I also need to think of ways to obscure his information, even forge an identity for him. That was Riley's plan. Is it possible? Vivian asked just in case. It's not a big problem. We could just pass him off as someone from an orphanage I've supported. Riley quickly and thoroughly considered it. Because many adventurers who had built families died heroically in their adventures, Riley had established orphanages for the children they left behind. From these orphanages, children often followed in their parents' footsteps or chose to become adventurers to thank Riley and become self-sufficient. Given this, if Riley wanted to forge an identity for Shane, it would be quite straightforward. Provided he is trustworthy, Riley reminded, I don't want to inadvertently help a foreign spy or a spy from the Demon Clan. Can you guarantee that? Riley stared intently at Vivian. Vivian couldn't help hesitating for a moment, but then resolutely nodded. Although we've only had brief contact, and his existence itself is quite an unstable factor, I can assure you, he is not a foreign spy or a spy from the Demon Clan. Vivian recalled Shane's reaction when discussing the war from 1,000 years ago, steeling herself as she spoke. If anything happens, I will take full responsibility. Upon hearing this, Riley smiled immediately. To make you go this far, that rookie really hit the jackpot. Riley shrugged and said, All right, I'll join you on this venture. Vivian felt a warmth in her heart. She knew that Riley deciding to do this meant Riley would be shouldering immense risk. For Riley, who aimed to nip any risks in the bud, this wasn't a decision made lightly. Vivian could only say one thing. Thank you. Everything was encapsulated in these brief words. Since I've already supported that rookie, let's see it through to the end. Riley smiled. However, I'm getting more curious about that rookie. I need to find a chance to have a drink with him. For the conversation and decision between Riley and Vivian, Shane naturally could not have known about it. After all, the ability he activated was not some kind of all-knowing power, so it was impossible for him to know that he was receiving more care than he had imagined in a place where he was unaware. Shane simply returned to the inn after parting ways with TL and the others, slept a deep sleep, and replenished his spirit. Then, the next day, Shane did not head to the Adventurers Guild, nor did he meet up with the members of Vivian's team. Instead, he left Lamidjan alone and came to a patch of forest in the outskirts. Is this the place? Looking at the forest that maintained its natural form, Shane verified the address he remembered. After exiting the East City Gate and heading south along the main road, then entering the forest on the outskirts, this should be it. But what should he do next? Shane began to worry. Fortunately, he didn't have to worry for long, as the target appeared on its own. Are you here? With somewhat cold words, a girl clad in a black robe silently approached from the front. Who else could it be but TL? Sorry, I'm late. Shane quickly stepped forward. No worries, I just got here myself. TL replied calmly. The conversation between the two seemed rather mundane, but if it weren't for TL's cold attitude and tone, based on the content alone, it really resembled something a couple might say when meeting before a date. At least, that was how Shane felt. Unfortunately, the people involved had no such intentions. Since you're here, let's get started immediately. TL turned around, saying, Let's first move to a less conspicuous place. All right. Shane obediently followed. There was no choice. Today, Shane was here to be a student. Previously, TL had promised to teach Shane the skill of magical sword, and this matter was now going to be realized. Yesterday, after the group parted, TL had instructed Shane to come find her here today, which was why Shane was here. But after arriving, Shane had some questions. So you don't live in Lemidgen? Shane felt somewhat strange. No. TL, leading the way ahead and guiding Shane deeper into the forest, briefly stated, I don't like crowded places. This place indeed doesn't seem inhabited. Shane surveyed the natural scenery around, but then remarked, but can people live here? They can, TL succinctly replied. There's a farm nearby, and the farm owner has a house in Lemidgen. I stay there under the condition of driving away the attacking demons daily. I see, Shane muttered. I thought only elves like Marika would live such a nature-preserving lifestyle. Elves always left people with a beautiful and pure impression, a race that seemed unwilling to live in towns, but instead resided in the natural world outside. Of course, this was undoubtedly Shane's own assumption. In Lemidgen, there are also inns exclusively for the elf clan, and Marika stays there, TL stated coldly. Lumuya, along with her 7 younger sisters, lives in Lemidgen too, having rented a house themselves. Vivian lives at the guildmaster's house, and only I live outside. Firstly, because I don't like crowded places, and secondly, I can hunt the nearby demons when not adventuring, doing a bit of training. The latter might be the real reason why TL chose to live outside the city, right? Clearly a genius, yet still so diligent. Indeed, no one could easily become strong. Shane completely ignored his own existence, thinking about things as if they didn't concern him. Suddenly, Shane froze for a moment. Just now, did he hear something that he couldn't just casually listen to? Lumuya has 7 sisters. Shane realized he had heard something astonishing. Indeed, TL, as if not noticing Shane's astonishment, stated as usual, Lumuya's parents are both adventurers and married late, having Lumuya at 40 and then birthing 7 daughters at the age of 50. So Lumuya has 7 sisters, all 10 years younger than her. This is something known among the team. So, Lumuya's parents had septuplets at 50? At that moment, Shane couldn't help but admire Lumuya's parents immensely, especially Lumuya's father, whose admiration was as vast as the ocean. Unfortunately, now, Lumuya's parents have already passed away, the reason being the many internal injuries they suffered while adventuring, ultimately passing away one after the other in their early 50s. The news TL brought next made Shane pause in his steps. So Lumuya is she? Shane hesitated to voice his question. Just as you imagined, TL glanced at Shane and said, she's now the sole pillar of her family, adventuring only to raise her 7 7-year-old sisters. She and her sisters are now in a state of mutual reliance. Shane fell silent. If that's the case, Shane could understand why the timid and shy Lumuya chose to become an adventurer, engaging in dangerous activities. It wasn't because Lumuya wanted to do so, but because she had no choice but to do so for her sisters. Next time, let's bring some gifts for Lumuya. Shane decided. Just don't scare her. TL seemed indifferent about it. While speaking, the two arrived in a more open wilderness. Let's do it here. TL turned around to face Shane, saying, without further ado, let me first tell you the conditions to acquire the magical sword skill. Shane nodded, paying close attention. In this situation, TL began her explanation. As you might know, this skill is a melee type of trump card, only with a very low probability of being acquired when at level 70. Compared to regular skills, whether in terms of attack power, damage, or usefulness, it is significantly superior. TL explained in a cold tone. However, the conditions to acquire the magical sword skill are actually not that high, consisting of only 2. First, increase a melee-type weapon skill to level 5 or above. Second, magic power must meet the standard. As long as these 2 conditions are met, generally speaking, it is possible to acquire the magical sword skill. But it's these 2 conditions that few people can meet. The reason is simple. Melee experts usually don't have abundant magic power, and those with sufficient magic power often choose to become mages. So even though these 2 conditions are not difficult to meet individually, meeting them both is harder than you might think. TL directed her gaze at Shane, speaking thus. If you can't meet these 2 conditions, then even if I teach you, you won't be able to acquire the magical sword skill. The point TL intended to express was clear. Have you met these two conditions? That was the intent. Shane's expression suddenly turned a bit sheepish. It wasn't because he felt guilty for not meeting the learning conditions. Quite the opposite. Shane felt that he had more than fulfilled the conditions. Raise a melee weapon skill to level 5 or above. Shane's two-handed sword was already at level 10. Magic power must meet the standard. Although he didn't know exactly what the standard was, every time Shane leveled up, his abilities grew to the maximum. He also possessed the magic guide skill, which significantly improved his magic power and magical abilities. This skill was also at level 10. If this still didn't meet the standard, Shane wouldn't believe it. Therefore, in terms of learning conditions, Shane undoubtedly met them, even exceeded them. However, for those uninformed, Shane was still just a level 10 newbie adventurer who hadn't acquired a single skill and didn't seem capable of meeting the conditions to learn the magical sword. Because of this, when TL previously expressed her willingness to teach him the magical sword, everyone in Vivian's team was surprised, weren't they? If Shane admitted here that he met the learning conditions, it would be akin to telling TL that he had actually been hiding information about his skills. That being the case, no, maybe TL has already noticed something. Shane suddenly realized. After all, TL had agreed to Shane's request to learn the magical sword without hesitation. If TL thought Shane couldn't meet the conditions to learn the magical sword, would she have agreed so readily? Certainly not. So, this girl must have noticed something unusual about me, right? Shane stared at TL, speechless. TL didn't urge Shane to answer and just waited quietly. After a while, Shane relaxed his shoulders first. What should I do next? That statement was self-explanatory. Naturally, TL understood and, after a moment of silence, responded. Since you've met the learning conditions, let's start from the basic steps, TL said. Can you feel the presence of magic power? I suppose I can. Shane felt relieved that TL didn't pry further and uncertainly replied. It's that ominous aura you feel during battles with demons, right? You could say that. TL neither denied nor confirmed, but said, generally speaking, magic power isn't easily perceived. Unless one learns the magic perception skill, most people can only detect magic power as waves, breaths, atmospheres, or similar phenomena. It's the same principle as sound waves. Those who learn the magic perception skill are like people holding a sound wave detector, capable of clearly perceiving the existence of sound waves, even seeing them through the device. Normally, people cannot detect sound waves and can only hear sound within the range of human auditory perception, not directly perceiving the existence of sound waves. Magic power is like this, usually not directly perceived by people. Only those with sharp senses can detect its presence in other ways. But to directly sense and perceive magic power, one must learn the magic perception skill. By learning this skill, one can directly perceive and even see magic power. It becomes quite useful. Take Shane, for example. Even though he had acquired the enemy detection skill, allowing him to detect hostile presences, he couldn't sense those without hostility. This meant that even though he could detect danger, if someone was monitoring or stalking him, he couldn't detect it. Furthermore, he couldn't perceive others who had no direct connection with him, like a radar detecting people and their movements around him. Of course, demons were an exception. Since they always harbored hostility toward humans, they would attack as soon as they saw one. Thus, those with the enemy detection skill could always and everywhere perceive the existence of demons within the skill's range. Based on this characteristic, enemy detection has many applications. For instance, if someone wanted to infiltrate a heavily guarded facility, enemy detection could detect all patrolling personnel, guards, and even the army's positions, as they would harbor hostility toward any intruder. Thus, when one stands as an intruder, they can use enemy detection for perception. Because of this, individuals such as thieves, spies, and adventurers occasionally learn the enemy detection skill. It's a fairly useful skill, but enemy detection ultimately targets hostility, not life signs, so it cannot perceive the movements of any existence at any time. However, magic perception was different. It focused on perceiving magic power, even directly seeing it. Unless the other party's magic power was extremely low or too far away, it was detectable. As skill levels increased, perception became sharper, and the range grew larger, similar to enemy detection. However, in one situation, anyone could clearly perceive magic power's presence. That is, the magic power flowing within one's own body, TL said. When a magic power in your body grows to a certain level, anyone can feel its flow. TL raised her head and gazed at Shane. Now, concentrate your attention and focus on yourself. Perceive your own magic power. Hearing this, Shane nodded and closed his eyes. His consciousness dove into his body. Thump, thump. His heartbeat seemed unusually clear. Shane focused all his attention and searched for magic power within himself. Before long, I feel it. Shane spoke with his eyes closed. In his mind, he could sense streams of magic power flowing within him. It felt as if he could see air currents or water streams flowing inside himself. In the past, Shane had felt magic power within his body, but never as clearly as now. Previously, Shane couldn't say he was perceiving magic power. He was merely following the techniques for using skills, naturally allowing magic power to activate as the skill was used. Consequently, skill acquired, magic perception learned. The just-mentioned skill, Shane effortlessly earned the qualification to learn. Before Shane could react, TL's voice reached his ears. Focus your spirit more. Concentrate deep within your body. Use your consciousness to guide magic power and release it. Remember, don't release magic power with the feeling of using a skill. That way, magic power will follow that skill's activation method naturally, and you won't be able to control it, rendering it meaningless. You need to manipulate magic power with your own feeling. First mobilize it little by little, then gather it in the hand holding the weapon and release it. Note, don't release it all at once. It will disperse. Let magic power flow through your arm into the weapon and gather within it. Listening to the instructions, Shane, who at some point drew the broad blade sword from his waist, followed TL's guidance, manipulating the magic power within him. Skill acquired. Magic manipulation. Learn. Shane immediately obtained the new skill. Learn. This time, Shane reacted instantly and learned both of the newly acquired skills. Not only that, but Shane also instantly raised magic manipulation to level 10. This skill, which he had acquired less than a second ago, thus transformed into a divine skill of the top level in Shane's hands. At this moment, Shane felt his magic power flowing through his body as if guided by his own will, perfectly controlled by him. Shane's mind moved, and magic power gathered at his hand at an incredible speed, then infused into the broad blade sword he held tightly. Buzz! A slight sound of vibration arose. It was seen that the broad blade sword in Shane's hand began to emit a glow. That was the glow of magic power. By human operation, magic power transformed into power and became visible to the human eye. Seeing this, TL was somewhat surprised. Did he actually complete the stage of releasing magic power and manipulating magic power so quickly? Since TL had also gone through this stage, she knew very well that it wasn't easy to achieve. As a general rule, it's difficult for most people to even directly perceive magic power. Under such circumstances, even if they can feel the magic power within their own body, it is naturally extremely difficult to mobilize it smoothly, let alone release it outside. Just as the spring water of the magic source will eventually evaporate and disperse into the atmosphere, the magic power within a human body can only flow internally. Once released outside, it typically disperses and requires rigorous training to maintain its form and be manipulated. Initially, TL was stuck at this stage for a whole month before successfully moving past it. It is said that if one possesses the magic manipulation skill, this stage will be crossed easily. However, even so, Shane succeeded extraordinarily quickly, didn't he? As expected of, TL murmured to herself. But quickly, TL became serious again. Just like that, Maintain control over the magic power, letting it circulate within the weapon, and be sure not to relax control, or it'll disperse immediately. TL gave these little hints. Then, in this state, consciously direct the circulating magic power towards the blade or tip of the sword, allowing the magic power to continuously gather there. Following this method, the quality and density of magic power will continuously enhance. Eventually, it could transform to form a substantial spring, akin to the magic power in the atmosphere and earth after high-density gathering. In this way, the magical sword capable of severing all things can take shape. Hearing this, Shane immediately focused and continuously injected his body's magic power into the broad blade sword, ensuring the magic power within the sword kept strengthening. The magic light on the broad blade sword immediately became increasingly dazzling and brilliant. At this moment, Shane undoubtedly exerted his full strength, channeling all magic power into the weapon. Even using the magic recovery skills, quickly replenished magic power without hesitation, infusing it into the broad blade sword in his hand. Originally, Shane had the highest growth in magic power, unwilling to lose to any mage's magic power growth. This kind of magic power, enhanced by the level 10 magic guide skill, became extraordinarily vast, extraordinary. As a result, in this situation, Shane not only infused all magic power into the weapon, but also continuously infused the rapidly replenishing magic power. What would become of such actions in the end? Very simple. Shane didn't even have time to gather magic power at the edge or tip of the sword when a massive magic power already rioted in the broad blade sword, ultimately directly forming a transformation. Ugh! Shane only felt that the broad blade sword in his hand suddenly became massive and unbelievable, causing him to involuntarily raise the weapon high. Buzz! Accompanied by a vibration sound countless times stronger and louder than before, a red light exploded from Shane's raised broad blade sword, soaring skyward, instantly transforming into a gigantic and dazzling magic blade. What? TL was greatly shocked. At the same time, a message unsurprisingly appeared in Shane's mind. Skill acquired. Magical sword, learn. Finally, Shane successfully obtained this melee trump card. However, Shane felt the broad blade sword in his hand become extremely heavy, as if he were holding not a sword, but a mountain of swords, nearly suffocating him. Furthermore, the magic power gathered on the sword appeared to be disintegrating, becoming extremely unstable. No, it wasn't disintegrating, it was exploding. It's going to blow. Such a thought flashed through Shane's mind, and he unhesitatingly learned the newly acquired magical sword skill, instantly leveling it up to level 10. This action was both correct and incorrect. Correct because Shane successfully stabilized the astonishing magic power gathered in the broad blade sword with level 10 of the magical sword skill. And incorrect because, with the instant level up of the skill, the power of Shane's magical sword naturally increased dramatically. Boom! A storm of magic power exploded, causing the magic blade on Shane's raised broad blade sword to expand in an instant. The original magic blade, which was already over 100 meters, now directly soared into the clouds. Shane almost subconsciously swung his hand down. Don't! A familiar cold voice entered Shane's ear, carrying a rare tone of panic and urgency. But, unfortunately, it was already too late. The magic blade that soared into the clouds toppled down like a heavenly pillar, descending with a dazzling glow and a storm of magic power. Boom! On this day, in the outskirts of Lamidjan, a sudden earth-shattering roar appeared. Along with the roar, the ground trembled, giving a feeling as if the world was crumbling. Countless demons were startled by this cosmic phenomenon and fled, forming various small and large beast tides. Passing caravans and adventurers on the nearby roads were similarly frightened, becoming panic-stricken. Even the citizens of Lamidjan felt a tremor underfoot and heard a thunderous noise from the horizon, causing many to be startled, with numerous children directly bursting into tears. What happened? Such a loud noise just appeared all of a sudden. Scared me to death. Was it thunder? Is it thunder? No, it doesn't quite sound like thunder. Moreover, the ground seemed to shake just now. Did you feel it too? What on earth happened? In Lamidjan, such nervous and anxious discussions echoed everywhere. Soon, the scouting teams of the Adventurers Guild and the town's night order were deployed, seemingly preparing to investigate. No one knew that all this was merely caused by a newbie adventurer practicing skills. I caused trouble. That was Shane's only thought at this moment. There was no other way. Looking at the scene in front of him, Shane really couldn't think of any other word to describe his actions except causing trouble. As you could see, in front of Shane, the once empty wilderness had completely changed. Boom, 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 boom. That was the sound of countless rocks crashing to the ground. Phew! That was the sound of dust dissipating into the air. A massive slash mark, like a crack in the earth, divided the wilderness and continued to extend forward, finally reaching a mountain peak, looking like an abyssal cliff, making one's heart skip a beat. Even more horrifying was that the tall mountain at the end of the cliff-like chasm appeared to be split in two, adding to that the residual magic power, still raging around like invisible tornadoes. How could Shane not know what good deed he had done? No wonder it's the ultimate move of the melee type. Its power is indeed extraordinary. Shane made an objective assessment, like a master in a martial arts novel, with a calm demeanor. If you ignored the cold sweat streaming down his forehead. Cough, cough. At this point, the sound of a difficult cough came from his side, and Shane finally remembered something important. TL. Shane wasn't alone here. Immediately, Shane quickly turned his head to look in the direction of the cough. There, TL was kneeling on one knee on the ground, raising her hands to shield herself as if she had been blocking an incoming storm, now coughing constantly, looking rather embarrassed. Are you okay? Shane hurried over, want to help, but not knowing how, looking terribly awkward. You? TL ignored Shane's awkwardness, raising her head as she coughed, looking at Shane. Although Shane couldn't see TL's expression under the hood, he inexplicably knew the gaze of this young girl at this moment. That gaze was like looking at a monster. I didn't mean to. Shane defended himself with an extremely unnatural expression. I didn't know it would be like this, and besides, I was doing exactly as you taught. Saying this, Shane reflexively lifted his broad blade sword, as if trying to hand over the tool of the crime, clearing himself of suspicion. It's just unfortunate. Crack! The broad blade sword Shane raised up was unexpectedly covered in cracks without anyone noticing, and then it shattered completely, as if it could no longer hold together. Moreover, those fragments didn't even land on the ground, because before they touched the ground, they already scattered like dust, carried away by the wind. Shane and TL witnessed this scene, both falling into speechlessness. Next, TL looked at Shane again. Shane didn't need to identify to know that TL's gaze now was not just like she was looking at a monster, but as if she was looking at a humanoid demon. No, perhaps TL's gaze was more like she was looking at a new demon king. Who could tell? Shane's face immediately turned red. It was from holding it in. After holding it in for a long time, Shane finally squeezed out a sentence. What should we do next? Shane seemed to have given up on explanations. TL could only continue looking at Shane in speechless silence, until after a while, she looked at the deep chasm and the distant mountains split in two on the horizon. That scene reminded TL of the magic blade that fell like a pillar from heaven, making her heart tremble. Let's leave here first. TL took a deep breath, suppressing her voice from trembling, maintaining a cold tone as she spoke to Shane. With such a big commotion, Lamidjan must have already noticed. Let's leave before the investigators arrive. Hearing this, Shane hesitated. Is this really okay? Shane's anxious and guilty demeanor calmed TL down a bit. You can stay if you want, TL said, but if you do, you'll be taken away for questioning, maybe even seen as a Demon Clan spy here to cause deliberate destruction. Is that okay with you? Shane's spirit immediately lifted. Then let's go quickly. Shane's thoughtless words made TL's eyebrow twitch involuntarily. However, now was not the time for leisurely conversation. Suppressing her urge to say something more, TL stood up. But as she stood, TL's delicate body tilted to one side. Are you all right? Seeing this, Shane quickly reached out and supported TL. I'm fine. TL's face under the hood turned slightly red, and she gave Shane a fierce glare, seemingly annoyed. After all, being so scared that she went weak in the knees and unable to stand was truly embarrassing. Shane seemed to understand what had happened, shrinking his head back and speaking meekly. I really didn't mean it. Seeing Shane looking both aggrieved and too scared to say much, TL found it both frustrating and amusing. After a moment of silence, TL spoke. It's best if you don't mention today's events to anyone, TL said. Not even to Vivian. Not even to Vivian? Shane was taken aback. That's the best, TL said blandly. It's not about not trusting Vivian, just that the fewer people know, the less trouble we'll have. All right. Shane pondered for a moment, then nodded. If it meant less trouble, Shane was all for it. Anyway, it wasn't that big of a deal, right? Hopefully. And TL glanced at Shane, her voice turning serious and stern for the first time. Don't casually use the magical sword again. This was important, and TL had to remind him specifically. Otherwise, thinking of the possible consequences gave TL chills. I can't use it, Shane asked in some dismay. Doesn't that mean all the skills I learned were wasted? Then wouldn't everything done today be completely for nothing? TL also frowned. Then she sighed. At least, until you can control the power freely, it's best not to use this skill in front of others, TL advised, and, as if remembering something, added, also, don't use it in crowded areas. All right, Shane then felt relieved and nodded without another word. After that, the two of them quickened their pace to leave, as if they were really escaping a crime scene. But this breathtaking scene remained. Undoubtedly, even hundreds of years later, this place would still look the same and might even become a tourist attraction. After leaving the crime scene, after leaving the site of the incident, Shane originally thought he would be questioned by TL. After all, no matter how you looked at it, a novice adventurer could not possibly wield a magical sword with such power. No, rather, someone who could wield a magical sword with such power, as far as TL knew, probably couldn't be found besides Shane. If you wanted to find someone who could compare to the magical sword Shane wielded, you'd probably have to look for that hero who left a legend of splitting the sea. But even that hero probably spent a considerable amount of time and effort raising their level to achieve such mastery over the magical sword. And Shane? It might not have even been a minute since he first learned the magical sword until he wielded it with such power. Plus, with Shane's level being so low, achieving such an earth-shattering result without being questioned was impossible. Therefore, after leaving the wilderness, Shane had prepared to be questioned by TL. But who would have thought that TL didn't pursue it at all and said only one thing? Since you've already learned the magical sword, do you want to learn the other skills too? TL, like this, not only didn't pursue questions about Shane, but casually expressed it as if it were nothing. This left Shane unsure of TL's thoughts. However, since this opportunity presented itself, Shane didn't want to refuse. Thus, after the magical sword, Shane asked TL to teach him the skills of penetration, acceleration, and close-range evasion. In Shane's view, these three skills were also incredibly useful. One could ignore a certain level of defense, another could increase one's speed, and another could allow the user to evade enemy attacks successfully and approach the opponent using any condition swiftly. For a melee person, these were undoubtedly divine skills. So, Shane was eager to learn these three skills. TL didn't hold back and taught Shane the skills of penetration, acceleration, and close-range evasion without reservations, allowing Shane to learn them. As a result, during the process of learning these skills, there was another unexpected situation. However, this time, it wasn't something earth-shattering. Skill acquired, penetration. Do you want to learn it? Skill acquired, armor of destruction. Do you want to learn it? Skill acquired, acceleration. Do you want to learn it? Skill acquired, free movement. Do you want to learn it? Skill acquired, close range evasion. Do you want to learn it? Skill acquired, instantaneous movement. Do you want to learn it? As mentioned above, during the process of learning the skills, Shane not only acquired the skills he wanted to learn, but also, as with obtaining magic perception and magic manipulation, gained additional unexpected skills. Armor of Destruction was acquired during the learning of penetration, and its function was to destroy the armor on an opponent, dismantling their defensive power. Free Movement was acquired during the learning of acceleration, and, as the name implies, it allows movement without external impediments in any situation. This allows one to perform feats like running on walls, moving on water, and traversing difficult terrains like parkour without being influenced by external factors. As for instantaneous movement, it was naturally acquired during the learning of close-range evasion. This was the fourth active skill Shane obtained, after the magical sword, tame, and extreme transformation. Its effect was simple, allowing the user to ignore the laws of physics and instantly relocate to another position when about to receive an attack. Shane was even more excited when he acquired this skill than when he learned the magical sword, because this was basically a limited edition of instant movement. However, this skill was ultimately instantaneous movement, not instant movement, so it still had some limitations. There were 3 limitations. 1. It could only be used when under attack. 2. The relocation position was uncontrollable. It was a random relocation, not determined by the user. 3. The range was limited, with the maximum relocation distance being around a 10-meter radius. At skill level 1, the skill allowed only small relocations within a 1-meter radius. But even so, this skill seemed to rival advanced skills like the magical sword. It said that currently in the Mitra Kingdom, there seemed to be no one who had mastered this skill. In view of this, Shane wasted no time leveling it up to level 10. Naturally, Shane also leveled up all other skills to level 10, including the previously acquired skill, Magic Perception. In other words, under TL's guidance, Shane learned 9 skills in total, taking them all to level 10. In this situation, Shane was finally surprised to find that his level had also increased. After knowing this, TL remained silent for a long time before speaking. Leveling up is not limited to combat. Even regular training can lead to it if it allows you to grow. In other words, it was that kind of situation today. Acquiring many skills led Shane to unquestionably grow, thereby increasing his level. But it might also be due to the influence of the magical sword from before. TL added, muttering, in that situation, it wouldn't be surprising if a large number of unlucky demons were caught up in it too. This statement made Shane chuckle awkwardly while praying in his heart, hoping it didn't affect humans. Otherwise, that would be a big mistake indeed. Thinking thus, Shane glanced at his current level, LV.18, gained 8 levels in one go. It increasingly seemed possible that it wasn't just personal growth that led to the upgrade. In any case, one thing was certain. After today, Shane had grown much stronger. In fact, it proved that a cheater didn't need to become a 10-mile slopestyle god. But the stimulus a cheater provides to those around them is equally terrifying. At least, upon witnessing Shane accomplish what he planned to learn at level 1 in less than a day, TL once again fell silent for a long time. Then, you should go back first today. TL threw this statement to Shane. What about you? Immersed in his emotions, Shane subconsciously asked, it's been a while since I fought demons higher than my level. Leaving those words indifferently, TL turned and left. Shane wanted to follow, but was refused. Helpless, Shane could only turn his gaze toward where Lamijin was. Next up is magic. Who should I find to learn from? And possibly trouble. Truly a dilemma. Approximately an hour later, Shane returned to Lamijin, re-entering the town. As he walked down the street, his expression seemed somewhat guilty. People were passing by in groups of 2 or 3, engaging in conversations like, haven't the Night Order and the Adventurers Guild figured out what caused that phenomenon yet? They've been back for so long. The way they looked all panicked when they returned, it must have been something serious, right? Could it be that the Demon Clan is up to something? Don't say that. Even the demon clan maintains a peaceful relationship with our human race and the divine race now. Although some problematic individuals have caused issues, many of the demon clan's leaders are working tirelessly for peace among the three clans, so it's better not to reject the demon clan without reason. That's true, but who else besides the demon clan could make such a commotion? Maybe those troublesome children in the demon clan caused another headache. Or perhaps it was just a simple natural phenomenon. But then the Night Order and Adventurers Guild wouldn't be so panicked, would they? This is really concerning. Similar conversations continuously reached Shane's ears, forcing him to lower his head, hunching his shoulders like a suspicious character not wanting to be seen. If the patrolling soldiers in the town saw him, they might question him. In fact, Shane had already been questioned by the gatekeeper upon entering the town. You're the adventurer returning from that direction, right? Yes. Did you see any strange phenomena? What do you mean by strange phenomena? Strange earthquakes and loud noises. If you saw anything, please tell us. This is what the higher-ups are requesting. We hope adventurers like you can help us figure out the cause of the phenomenon. Is that so? Yes. So did you see anything unusual? No. All right. Please proceed into the town. Thank you. This was the conversation Shane had with the gatekeeper at the town gate before entering Lemidgen. With this experience in mind, seeing the entire town seemingly engulfed in anxiety and panic, and the townspeople constantly discussing the same topic with worried expressions, Shane, as the culprit of it all, felt he better kept his head as low as possible. After all, I was just practicing a skill. I didn't intentionally do anything scary. Why did it turn out like this? Shane sighed deeply. I didn't even use the Holy Sword. I was using this skill strictly in my level 10 newbie adventurer state. Even if I accidentally infused too much magic power because of magic guide and magic recovery and accidentally pushed the skill level too high, it shouldn't have turned out like this, right? Shane genuinely felt wronged. In other novels, protagonists constantly destroy the world and challenge the heavens, causing much more terrifying destruction. Yet all they earn is admiration and worship from bystanders. Why did things turn out this way for him? Is this the real reality? Consider this. When facing a true natural disaster, even if it's humanoid, people wouldn't admire and worship something for showing immense destructive power. People admire and worship heroes who can use tremendous power to protect themselves and uphold order. If this power cannot be used for the world, then for ordinary citizens, it's no better than a demon king. Now, as people face incomprehensible phenomena and powers, the only reaction is panic and unease. To want, like those Dragon-out-yin protagonists in novels, to defy everything and still expect admiration and worship is just wishful thinking. Instead, if one's move causes so much unease and panic among innocent people, what's there to be proud of as a so-called protagonist? Anyway, as for Shane, seeing the general innocent public feeling anxious due to his slip, he felt quite guilty. After all, it's not right to involve the innocent, right? I should be more restrained in the future. To prevent today's situation, Shane felt he needed to thoroughly contemplate the skill of the magical sword. Even though, after leveling the magical sword to level 10, Shane could completely control its power freely, understanding how much magic power to infuse for how strong a magical sword should still be studied carefully. Otherwise, if too much magic power is infused like today, it could lead to another disaster. Thinking about the ground and mountains he split, Shane felt a heavy heart. Level 10 should be like that. Now my level has almost doubled. If I use the magical sword with full force, what will happen? Moreover, if he were to use even the Holy Sword, how would that turn out? Bear in mind, while the Holy Sword cannot boost Shane's magic power, it can raise the skill level by 10. The power of a level 10 magical sword is already at that level. If the skill is boosted another 10 levels. Spare me. Shane could barely imagine it. At this moment, Shane suddenly returned to his senses, turning toward a direction in surprise. Because with the magic perception skill, which Shane had already mastered and leveled to 10, an utterly astounding reaction suddenly emerged. What a strong magic power. This level of magic power wasn't something humans could possess. Is there such a powerful person in Lamidjan? Shane focused on that direction. He could sense a being with immense magic power was approaching here. Then, before long, the individual appeared. It was a tall, thin man with long limbs, draped in a cape, and with a very effeminate face. The man walked slowly, expressionless, his eyes not resting on anyone, nor on anything, as if nothing around him was worth his notice. The attitude was not one of arrogance or disdain, but of loathing. Yes, the man behaved as if he loathed everything here, or rather, he loathed everything about this world to the extent he refused even a glance at the surroundings. Such a man passed by Shane. Eventually, he stopped. "Is it you?" The man looked at Shane, his pupils so dark they didn't even reflect Shane's figure, as if he were talking not to a person, but to a bipedal animal. Shane squinted his eyes without uttering a word. The man didn't seem to mind, coldly regarded Shane, and then took out a parchment from his clothing. On the parchment, a human figure was drawn. Taking one glance at the person in the picture, Shane's pupils contracted. "You've seen this person, haven't you?" The man asked coldly. That picture indeed depicted someone Shane was familiar with. Looking at the portrait held up in front of him, Shane frowned tightly without saying a word. The man across from him looked coldly at Shane. "You've seen this person, haven't you?" The person asked again. "Who are you?" Shane ignored the man's question and instead asked this. Yet the man paid no attention to Shane's inquiry. "You've seen this person, haven't you?" The man's voice became even colder than before. This made Shane's brow furrow even deeper, and his mood started to sour. The man's attitude clearly showed he didn't care about Shane, or anyone else for that matter, acting stubborn and self-centered. However, it wasn't out of arrogance or pride, but simply because he loathed everything here, which was why he adopted such an attitude. In other words, he ignored Shane not because he thought himself superior, but because he didn't want his eyes sullied by things he despised. Nevertheless, this kind of behavior was infuriating. What if I say I haven't seen her? What would you think? At that moment, Shane crossed his arms and stared at the man, saying this. "You've seen her." The man remained unflinching, calmly saying, "There is residual magic power on you from her. Either you've been in close contact with her, or you've fought her recently." Presumably, this was why the man had stopped and engaged in conversation with Shane. "That, is it you?" Opener should have been. "Are you the one she came in contact with here?" Shane didn't deliberately hide the truth. "Indeed, I fought with her." Shane nodded in acknowledgement while also smiling, but so what? To this question, the man had only one response. "Where?" The man went straight to the point. "How should I know?" Shane was even more direct, throwing this answer back. "Don't know." The man looked coldly at Shane. "You can't possibly not know." "Really?" Shane replied sarcastically. "And what makes you think I would know?" The man suddenly fell silent, but his eyes and expression grew increasingly impatient. "Where is she?" The man's attitude was no longer just one of disdain, but now also included a warning and a murderous intent. With the skill of magic perception, Shane could sense that the man was already summoning his magic power, which meant he was likely to attack at any moment. Faced with this situation, Shane wanted to say only one thing. "She's at your grandmother's." Shane casually insulted the man's family. The man fell silent again. However, the air around them started becoming heavy. The man stared intently at Shane, as if considering whether or not to make a move. Shane, on the other hand, maintained a smile, though his eyes showed no hint of humor, as if he too was considering whether or not to fight. After all, Shane merely feared trouble, not conflict. If it came to an argument, Shane would cut him down to the point he wouldn't recognize his own mother. If it came to a fight, Shane wouldn't flinch at all. Besides, he still wanted to test the effects of a magical sword. So if this pretentious guy dared to strike, Shane would definitely show him just how red flowers could be. Of course, Shane thought, the more likely scenario was that the fight wouldn't happen. Not to mention they were in the town, and if they dared to brawl openly, the problems with the night order would arise, especially considering that since the man's goal was finding someone, he likely wouldn't want to alert the target. If things got out of hand and scared the target away, it would be more trouble than it was worth. Therefore, the fight probably wouldn't happen. As expected, I won't forget you. The man coldly tossed this sentence, then turned to leave. But at that moment, Shane moved. Boom! With a dull thud, Shane suddenly sprang up and delivered a heavy kick to the man's back just as he turned around. G-U-H! The man groaned, catching him off guard, and Shane's kick sent him flying, crashing him to the ground. Around them, citizens gasped and panicked. But Shane ignored all of it, paying no attention to the surrounding cries and commotion as he leaped onto the man before he could react. Boom! 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 Among the continuous dull thuds, Shane straddled the man, swinging his fists left and right, pummeling the man's face. What's with the act? What's with the act? Act more! Fuck! Shane seemed possessed by a furious spirit, relentlessly swinging his fists, one punch after another. Gah! The man could only muster cries of pain, instinctively raising his hands to block, his mind blank, apparently never expecting things to take such a sudden turn. But Shane had only one thing to say. Acting as if you're the Lord of heaven and earth, like the whole world owes you something, then talking big and trying to run. Go ahead and run. This fight can't happen. Afraid of alarming the target. Then don't fight. Let me hit you instead, and I'll help alert the target for you. How do you like that? Don't want to make a scene? Then I'll make one. Go on, keep acting for me. Shane kept cursing and swinging his fists, mercilessly smashing into the man's face. STO, stop. You! Finally, the man reacted, feeling the pain on his face and hearing Shane's harsh insults. His anger and frustration exploded. Boom! An astonishing surge of magic power burst from the man's body. The magic power swept out like a storm, causing the surrounding pedestrians to panic even more, screaming in fear and fleeing in a rush. But Shane not only didn't back away, he raised his fist again. Buzz! Amidst the buzzing tremor, Shane's fist shone with magic power manifesting as a red light. At that moment, Shane used the technique of the magical sword, gathering magic power in his fist, forming a glow of magic power. Then Shane punched down. Boom! The explosive sound of thunder echoed. The man, whose entire body was erupting with incredible magic power, was slammed into the ground by Shane's red glowing fist, shattering the road below, burying him in rubble and dust. Several meters around him collapsed in a burst, forming a pit, with cracks continuously spreading outward. Shane leaped out of it. Phew, finally relieved. Dusting off his clothes, Shane appeared refreshed and satisfied. And in that pit, the man had fallen unconscious, completely losing consciousness. Hey, adventurer over there. What are you doing? What happened here? At this moment, a chaotic sound of footsteps and reprimands came from over there, making Shane, who was patting dust off himself, turn around and look toward the source of the sound. On the other side of the street, a group of fully armed knights was quickly approaching. The citizens, startled, still hid in the distance, pointing towards them and discussing fervently. Seeing this situation with the Knight Order approaching swiftly, Shane was not surprised. After all, with such a disturbance here, it was impossible for the town-guarding Knight Order not to come and check the situation. Especially given the recent occurrence of disturbances in the heavens and earth, it's even more unlikely they wouldn't become vigilant. So, Shane just watched as the Knight Order encircled the scene. Then, a middle-aged man whose aura was clearly different from the other knights stepped out. I am the Knight Captain of Marquis Mora's 3rd Knight Corps, 7th Squad. The man first glanced at the large pit occupying the center of the street, feeling a jolt in his heart, then looked seriously at Shane. What happened here? Hearing this, Shane unhesitatingly spoke. An suspicious man abruptly entangled with me moments ago. Seemed like he wanted to do me harm. So, I subdued him. Shane talked with a straight face about such matters. A suspicious man? The Knight Captain immediately appeared puzzled. Yes, Shane earnestly admitted. I was just passing by here, and the guy suddenly came up holding a picture and started asking me some bizarre questions, pressuring me. These were indeed the facts, without any falsehood mixed in. At least, from these words, Shane indeed seemed like a victim. Is that so? The knight captain glanced at the large pit, his expression solemn, and said, "Then you are the one who caused this destruction here, right? I haven't heard of an adventurer as highly leveled as you." It seemed, in the knight captain's mind, Shane appeared a bit more suspicious. Unfortunately, Shane was already prepared with explanations. "You've misunderstood. Although the destruction here was indeed caused by me, it was because I used a magic tool that was given to me for self-protection by a senior in my current team. My level is not high enough for you all to know about me." Shane then started to speak seriously yet nonsensically. There was no choice. If he claimed everything here was his doing, given his current publicly stated level and ability, it would be impossible to believe he could cause such damages to someone who clearly wasn't an ordinary person. Not to mention beating someone like that. Indeed, even saying the surroundings were all his doing would certainly raise suspicions among others. By then, if someone curious were to investigate him, Shane felt some of his details would be uncovered, and troubles would follow. Had he not truly found the guy's demeanor, acting as if he could crush him at any moment, only refraining due to current circumstances to avoid sabotaging greater matters. So irritating, Shane definitely wouldn't have acted so conspicuously. But in the end, Shane still took action. As the saying goes, Shane wasn't afraid of trouble, and wasn't timid, simply wanted to avoid it whenever possible, wishing to lead a calm life, not to behave like a doormat. Shane felt fed up with those who act weak to deceive others, so he merely intended to avoid letting inconveniences occur, to live peacefully, not wanting to be a pushover. At the end of the day, that kind of leading character attitude, getting beaten without fighting back, getting insulted without retorting, being despised, and acting as if nothing happened, as though others' ridicule stemmed from ignorance, and he simply didn't want to stoop to their level, was just frustrating to Shane. Because it's just putting oneself on a higher pedestal to look down upon others in a different way, and was genuinely not that different from self-righteousness in many cases. And Shane? He was genuinely a plain person. Wishing to live calmly wasn't wrong, but there were many people like that in the world. So if they got confronted or targeted, are they not allowed to and wouldn't eventually explode with anger? That doesn't exist. So since the guy had already run over his tire onto his face, Shane didn't want, like some traditional classic developments, to let the other go away arrogantly just because he didn't physically assault him, leaving only a clean slate and demeanor to later fight back slowly. Feeling suffocated? Then charge ahead when needed, not just allowing others the rights to attack, while oneself needs to passively confront to seem noble and grand? That doesn't exist either. Given this, seeing the guy who had been maliciously throwing threats a second ago, then turn around, as if planning to let him go, with no guards up, Shane genuinely thought if he didn't land a kick, he wouldn't live up to his intelligence. Of course, though he kicked and felt great, Shane didn't intend to expose his eccentricity due to this. Thus, he could only fabricate stories. Having read numerous novels in the previous life, witnessing various plot developments, one as a reader should have certain thoughts and imagine responses for integrating oneself into these scenarios, right? Therefore, Shane wasn't flustered at all. If you doubt me, you can go to the Adventurers Guild and conduct an investigation. I'm a new adventurer who joined the guild recently. The squad I am currently with is the adventurer team, led by Vivian. You should know Vivian, right? These words from Shane made the knight captain suddenly realize. So, you are acquainted with Miss Vivian? The knight captain switched from being stern to showing a bit of respect. I was quite impolite. Indeed, if it's Vivian, know how, the knight captain wouldn't be unfamiliar with her. After all, Vivian was an advanced adventurer with a level as high as 50, well known, with a best friend so influential that even the nobles of this domain wouldn't dare to neglect the descendant of a great noble, the guild master of the Adventurers Guild. Surely the town's Knight Order knew about Vivian's existence. Moreover, Vivian was not only well known, but her conduct was assuredly reliable in others' eyes. The knight captain wasn't particularly doubtful of Shane. Naturally, Shane wasn't one to hit a smiling person, responding modestly. No, the impolite one was me. Regardless, having caused such damage, I feel quite apologetic, so I shall compensate for it. Understood. The knight captain finally eased his expression completely. At this moment, some disturbance occurred among the knights investigating the large pit. A knight rushed over hastily, whispered something into the knight captain's ear. What? The knight captain's face suddenly changed dramatically, even immediately going over to inspect the person excavated from the pit. And from him, the knights indeed found the picture Shane mentioned earlier. They shouldn't suspect me now, right? With evidence and status clear, Shane felt slightly at ease. However, the knight's agitation made Shane realize this matter might not be that simple, especially the knight captain, who had a rather grim expression when looking at the picture. Thereupon, the knight captain returned to Shane. We have confirmed he is indeed a problematic figure, likely a major criminal wanted by the kingdom. The knight captain bowed in respect to Shane and said, "Thank you for your assistance. Once we verify this man's identity, the Lord might reward you. Please don't leave Lemidgen for the time being." After saying this, the knight captain issued an order, leading all the knights, escorting the unconscious man away in even faster steps than when they arrived. The murmurs around suddenly grew louder. Shane also watched the knight order's departure, recalling the person from the picture and gradually restraining his smile.